Hello, everyone. Hello. Hi, everyone. I am Trooper SJP, and this is the Academic Foxhole. What are you all doing? How's it going? Rissa. Well, hello, Verum, and welcome in, Leiden, Krellin, Rissa. Rissa, I don't think what time I went to bed last night is all of that relevant. I feel like, hey, PH, what time did I go to bed last night? That's a question. Atomica, what is your exciting news? What is your exciting news? Hey, Schmelzer. Yes, I somehow last night I didn't go to bed until 7 in the morning. It is true. It was probably like 6:40, 6:50. It might have been, it was like 6:50 in the morning. I was up. But I am going to go to bed by 2 o'clock in the morning tonight. Atomica. Oh, hey, you got 100 followers? Atomica. Boo, 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 boo. Yes. Atomica, that's amazing. I think I was not, look, tonight though, because tonight I'm going to go to bed at a decent time. This is like a plan. That's what I'm doing tonight. Tonight, decent time. Just like, boom, like that. Just like that. I mean, I've got a bunch of work to do, so that's going to happen, but that's what I'm doing. That's it. What kind of food challenge do you have to do, Atomica? What kind of food challenge? Tell me. All right, so look, I have to tell you all. What did I want to tell you? There were things I wanted to tell you. Yes, Cthulhu Confidential, as far as I know, is on for tomorrow because it looks like my internet has been fixed. We will have Cthulhu Confidential tomorrow. As far as I know, we do. Yeah, yes, we do. We have Cthulhu Confidential tomorrow. You're ordering some food grade buggies. Oh, you mean like grasshoppers and whatnot? Or ants? Are you eating ants? Are you eating grasshoppers? Are you eating grubs? What are you eating? What kind of bugs are you eating? And are they going to be dipped in chocolate? Like, you should say more about this, Atomica. Oh, grasshopper flour chips. Okay, so you're not gonna have like full on grasshoppers be like nom 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 nom. You're gonna have they're gonna be in chip form. That's fair. PH says, I went a long walk through my town and removed 20 racist stickers. Okay, 3 things, PH, 3 things. 1, congratulations on the long walk. Taking long walks is good for you. I should take long walks. Everyone should take a walk. Maybe I will add that to my schedule of taking a long walk once a day. We'll see, especially since, COVID and all. So 1, taking a long walk, that's really good. 2, removing racist stickers, that's also really good. 3, that there were 20 racist stickers to remove, less good. Why 2020? The chirps are the warm-up. The water bugs will be full-on bug bodies. Huh. The name game. Come on, everybody. I said, now let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. The first letter of the name. I treat it like it wasn't there. And then a B or an F. Or an M will appear. And then I say bo at a B, then I say the name, then banana, fan, or info. And then I say the name again with an F, very plain, then a fee, fi, and a mo. And then I say the name again with an M this time, and there isn't any name that I can't rhyme. But if the first two letters are ever the same, I drop them both and say the name. I like Bob, Bob drop the B's, Bo, or Fred, Fred drop the F's, for red, or Mary, Mary drop the M's, mo, airy. That's the only rule that is contrary. Falcon of Venom, Falcon of Venom, Falcon of Venom, boat, Falcon of Venom, banana, venom, for Falcon of Venom, FIFA, mo, Malcon of Venom. Falcon of Venom, Falcon of Venom, that is your 1 year anniversary. Speaking of which, speaking of 1 year anniversaries, you know what I need to do? I really need to go and get I need to get sub badges. Do you know what I mean? Like, I need to get sub badges, everybody. I feel like what I don't have are sub badges, and then what I need are sub badges, and those are my feelings. Those are my feelings. I need to get sub badges. That's what I need. Also, I got a new emote. Thank you, Falcon of Venom. My audio's being weird. Why? I don't know if my audio is being weird for you. Well, not my audio, but the game's audio. Oh, Rissa, do not think. I did not forget the bit song. I see it. Hey, Baron George. Hey, by the way, is video game audio weird for you, or is it just for me? I want to know. Because I'm hearing, and I'm trying to figure out if it's my headphones or not. I want to know. I want to know. This is what I want to know. PH says, once I started noticing them, I've started seeing them more and more. Most are older, though. Been there for a while now. Carlin's like, the wise, because capitalism convinced us that we live in a world of scarcity, not a world of plenty. The only thing is, though, you know, I'm going to come back to that thought. Me in part, my customer Pyro knows we are doing a good challenge, but has no idea what it is, though he's not obligated to, as I'm... Ooh, a food challenge. Once we have our badges, all we need is our guns. Badges? We don't need no stinking badges. Yeah, no, and also I think I still need the Doom emote, because we have an emote slot that we have not taken advantage of, and I need to make sub badges. That's on my priority. Atomica, thank you. It's low, you can hear it. Oh, it's in there. I made it lower because, you know, sometimes it's too low, too high. It stopped being stuttery. Yes, Trooper. Thank you, Carlin. I know there will still be racism way transition post scarcity, but there will be less. Yeah, because you know the thing about I will say it's a one thing that I'm never like overly excited about. I'm going to do this thing, and I hope it'll all work out. It might cause a thing, but we'll see how it goes. Well, you know, we're starting City of Light and Shadow next Friday. Next Friday is the first episode of season 2 of City of Light and Shadow. It's gonna be exciting. Scarcity Crow needs to be a thing. The audio might be getting a little bit weird again. There you go. Now mute it until you start playing. So this is just, I'm just gonna tell you, sort of like in terms of theory, just in terms of, oh, no wait, I can't tell about the theory first. Because first, I've gotta sing the bit song. I didn't forget that one. And let me turn down the audio a little bit again, so that it is not gonna distract us while I sing the bit song. So for the bits, I'm going to be singing We're in the Money, as sung by Ginger Rogers from the film Gold Diggers of 1933, which stars Ruby Keeler and Dick Powell, and also as one of the brassy sidekicks, Ginger Rogers. And in this film, she sings the song in Pig Latin. And so I too am going to sing the song in Pig Latin. Hey, J-Rab. Irway and hey the anime, Irway and hey the anime, I way at gale at way of way at way it way x to utit gale young way airway and hey the anime. Either I skays are on say. Oh man, the idiot pray, ooh, yare, ooh, three, what's stand way hungry. Ewe ever eat red lions lay, way at Brian's lay, ooh, day. And when we see the end, Lord will look at the eye, in the eye, we're in the money. We're in the money. We've got a lot of what it takes to get along. I love that song. I love singing that song. The song makes me happy. That is where my life is right now. I want you to know that. Chat, thank you for those bits, Rissa. Thank you. Oh hey, yes, you're in time for the song. Feels like I haven't been here for a while. Notice you have a different setup. Oh yeah, J-Rep, I moved. I moved for 1 year only. 1 year only. 1 year only. That's all I've got to give. No, I've moved to New York, upstate New York, for 1 year because I've got a research leave, which starts next week. And so I've got a little work to do before then. But you know, so I'm in a new apartment, and it is. Yeah, it's a new apartment. I've moved to a new place, and I'm gonna have to move back in a year, which is not as exciting. Do I have AC? Bara Garwin, my old place. Yeah, so do I have AC? The answer is yes. Yes. There is one AC unit. It's not there's no central air, right? So we don't have central air. I think what we're hearing in terms of audio is Wi-Fi stuff right now is what I think. By the way, I'm checking it out. So we have so yeah, we should be there. It's fine. Okay, so we have one. We don't have, there's no central air in this place. There's one little AC unit, you know, that's attached to the wall in the living room, and that's it. So if I put on the AC in the living room, it will not necessarily reach here, you know. Yeah, so I'm on a research leave, J-Rab. So I'm down in upstate New York for 1 year doing research, and then I've got to go back. That's what I'm doing. Also, this distresses me. Speaking of college-related madness, I am still looking at college options, but it's totally not happening till after Corona. Yeah, luckily it means more time to save money. Yes. Leave makes it sound like you're on vacation. Oh no, not vacation at all. I have got a lot I have to do in this year. I've got to write a book. And I mean, I also have to apply for 1 year my sabbatical leave for the fall after this, and I gotta make sure I do that pretty soon. That'll be fine. Sorry, I'm having feelings. You don't even have to worry about it. Okay, well, I'll be back. I've got to go help my mom with something, but I want to share. Oh, thank you, Falcon. We'll see you when you come back. We'll be playing the video game. Meditate. Sorry, no. What was going on in my mind? You don't know this, but what's going on in my mind was, this is what happened. Yes, I was having feelings. PH knows feelings, nothing more than feelings. I was having feelings, and the feelings were about the fact that you have to put in a leave form to ask to go on leave, and I filled out the leave form, and I thought that you could only fill out your leave form for 1 year, and so I filled out the leave form for 1 year, saying, hey, I want to go on leave for 1 year, but I also want to take this one semester that I've earned, that if I don't take it, I will lose it. So so I knew I was going to apply for that other semester, but I hadn't done yet. And when I filled out the form, I was talking to my dean, and I was like, yeah, I want to take this semester the year after. And my dean said, oh, you could have applied for all 3 semesters all at once. And I said, oh, I didn't know that. Can I apply? Can I just change the form and apply for all 3 semesters right now, since we're all here? And my dean said, of course. And so I changed the form so it would have all 3 semesters, and that was great. And then I left the office, and then a couple weeks later, I get word back saying that I was approved for my leave, but just for the 2 semesters. And then they're like, you have to reapply for that 3rd semester. I was like, I have to reapply. I won't even be in the state, which means getting signatures is going to be really irritating. And so what you saw me thinking at that moment was, oh man, I have to go and reapply for that 3rd semester, but I am not in the same state as my university, and I'm going to need to get signatures, but I am not there. I wonder if they can sign electronically, or if they won't be able to sign that. Like, in my mind, it was like this little flash of a thought about the irritation of logistics is what happened in my mind. Atomic says, yeah, kind of looking at taking a 4-year course, spreading it over 6 years, 3 in community college, 3 at the more traditional college I have my eyes on, and then maybe more if my grades are good enough to pursue a master's. Oh, Atomica, that sounds great. I will just say, yeah, Embargo says, sounds like a road trip. Yeah, and it might actually be a road trip, because I might have to go up for reasons. Bill of the Forest! Bill of the Forest! Bill of the Forest just subscribed, and we all know what that means. We all know what that means. Bill of the Forest. We know what that means. Come on, everybody. I said, now let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. The first letter of the name, I treat it like it wasn't there. And then a B or an F, or an M will appear. And then I say bow at a B, then I say the name, then banana, fanner, and foe. And then I say the name again with an F, very plain, then a fee, fi, and a mo. And then I say the name again with an M this time, and there isn't any name that I can't rhyme. But if the first 2 letters are ever the same, I drop them both and say the name. Like Bob, Bob drop the B's, Bo, or Fred, Fred drop the F's, fo, red, or Mary, Mary drop the M's, mo, airy. That's the only rule that is contrary. Bill of the Forest, Bill of the Forest, Bill of the Forest, Bill of the Forest, banana, fennec, fulfill of the forest, fee, fi, middle of the forest. Bill of the Forest. Thank you for that resub. Bill of the Forest. Hey, I don't know if you all know Bill of the Forest, everybody. Bill of the Forest is super awesome, and I like Bill of the Forest quite a lot. Bill of the Forest. Yes, you should follow Bill of the Forest. Bill of the Forest and I are in the Witcher game together. Although I'm currently in a stone, but I feel like they're going to rescue me in the next couple of weeks, like in a week or 2. TB Grant is like, I am pro Bill also. As well you should be, TB Grant, because Bill is awesome. Bill has got like a great beard. Bill has got awesome makeup skills. Bill has got, I don't know how many pounds Bill can squat, but I assume it's a lot. I also assume that Bill can do a really good Arnold Schwarzenegger accent, although I've never heard him do it, but I bet he can. Also, Bill is really fun to RP with. Bill's like a great fellow player. See, I knew that Bill could do a good Arnold Schwarzenegger accent. Like, I knew that. I knew it. And also, Trooper's first commendation about someone is about their beard. Well, his beard is awesome. It's very nice. It's well kept. It's long. It's luxurious. It's fancy. I'm just saying. The name game. Oh, also, Tales from the Grim heard that Bill once punched out Chuck Norris, and that's true. Come on, everybody. I said, now let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. The first letter of the name, I treat it like it wasn't there. And then a B or an F, or an M will appear. And then I say bo out of B, then I say the name, then banana, fanner, and foe. And then I say the name again with an F, very plain, then a fee, fi, and a mo. And then I say the name again with an M this time, and there isn't any name that I can't rhyme. Tales from the Grim. Ooh, this will be hard. Tales from the Grim. Tales from the Grim, Tales from the Grim, bo bells from the Grim, banana, fan, foot, fails from the Grim, fee, fi, mo, mills from the Grim. Tales from the Grim. No, I got that one. Thank you for the resub, Tales from the Grim. Also, that wasn't as hard as I thought. It's just that they're like, you know, yeah, I'm just saying. That's all. Yay. What do we got here? Beards are cool. Oh, you got new headshots. Oh, I want to see the new headshots. Bill LaForce got new. You know what? I need to get good headshots. I don't have any good headshots. I haven't had good headshots in a dog's age. A dog's age? How is his guard? You know, it's a good question, TP Grant. Bill LaForest, how are you at fencing? More like Chuck ran to my fist repeatedly. You know, he had it coming. He had it coming. He just ran into your fist. He ran into your fist 9 times. He only had himself to blame. Okay, so now I'm reimagining the Cell Block Tango, where everybody's talking about how they killed Chuck Norris. Like, it's just all sorts of different Chuck Norris stories is what I'm thinking. Rissa's like, I hope that isn't the first nice thing he says about me. Rissa, your beard is a bit lacking. It's like, it's not an insult. It's just that your beard's a bit lacking because you don't have one. That is all. That is all. Come to Columbus. I know a gal. Really? Speaking of Columbus, I need to be at Columbus anyway. I just should go to Columbus. Trooper, says Atomica, you seem like you had a piece of advice, but then you got name gamed. Oh. It's not exactly advice, it's an observation about college. Fencing guard or jiu-jitsu guard? Jiu-jitsu guard. I missed a lot of stuff everywhere. No, we're all good. Hey, Hickabing Boots. Columbus is a fun town. Yeah, I've heard really good things about Columbus. One of my best buddies is from there, from Bexley, which is right outside of Columbus, but like would hang out in Columbus, but is now back in California. But like, he always said good things about Columbus. And so I was like, oh, if I ever find myself in Columbus, I'll go and see things. J-Rob's like, my beard is non-existent. Girl wants it all shaved. No boxes in the background mean you're fine. No, Hickabing Boots. I'm not fully moved in. The boxes that were right over there are currently in the closet because I'm running Cthulhu Confidential and I wanted to move them out of the way so they would not be visible. But then I realized that I'm using my camera over here, which means you can see stuff that hasn't been moved. Yeah, so anyway, I still have to unpack. But I don't have that many boxes left. And the ones I have are many of them are not actually full, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Probably one of the best white belt no strips guards you'll ever come across. Yes, I killed Chuck Norris. How, you ask? By being too cute to boot. Yeah. Actually, yes. Also, so Origami Shuriken, I see a lot of boxes. Look at the box on the bottom shelf. Oh, those are gaming boxes. Those are different. Who needs a guard when can just get up to a single leg? I know, I do have progress. I certainly have. Hey, Balrog. No, TP Grant, you don't have to be good. You do not have to be good. You know, speaking of good, I will always remember the amazingness of Mae West, who is the best. If you, like, look, seriously, if you don't know Mae West, if you've never seen a Mae West film, you should see a Mae West film. You should see I'm No Angel, or She Done Him Wrong, but like I'm No Angel's a good one. She Done Him, both of, either one of those. Either one. Which one should you see? You should see one of the two. Mae West. She's the woman who, a lot of our like sassy double entendres are, many of them are from her, because she would just make these films Is May related to Adam West? That would be amazing. That would be amazing. So she would like make these films. She was a playwright. Be good or be good at it or don't get caught. Thank you, Origami Shuriken. Yes. Also, there was that time when she was wearing this beautiful fur coat in one of the films, and this woman was like, "Oh goodness, what a beautiful fur!" And then she says, "Goodness had nothing to do with it." And you're like, "Oh no!" Yeah. And then, is that a gun in your pocket? Are you happy to see me? That was also her. I Love a Man in Uniform is also her, but the way she said it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so scandalized right now because she's pretty amazing. Like she's pretty great. TP Grant, number one effective strategy so far: force a scramble, take the back, and rear naked choke. Build the forest. My guard is mostly like a small troop of people with fuzzy hats. And oh, speaking of guards, sorry, did you know I read a whole thing about this. You know the Swiss guard that guard the Vatican? Right, so the Swiss guard that guard the Vatican, I read a whole article about this. They are actually elite special forces. Hey, Susanna Grace, how are you? Welcome in. I was just saying that I read an article about the Swiss guard who guard the Vatican City. And they are these elite special forces that are like super, like, you know, you see them with the pikes and all of that, right? On the, you know, at the Vatican. Yeah, but they are like, Verum heard it too. Yeah, they are no joke. They are super, super intense special forces. But also, and this is something that is really cool, they also know how to use pikes as weapons. Like the pikes, they know how to use like modern, like basically they have trained in all of the weapons from their unit, so they can use the pikes as weapons, they can use swords and also machine guns. Like, so apparently they train not only in machine guns but also in pikes. And come on, that's cool, right? Like, that's cool. Who doesn't? I mean, like, I'm excited by that. Like, that's an awesome concept. Crit Twitch says, seriously, chat, what is even happening? We've been more lost than normal. And that's saying something. Oh, we're just talking about the Swiss guard. Yeah, honestly, Bill, you can run with that strategy all the way back, all the way to the black belt, and just smooth out the details. Balrog says the ridiculous uniforms are just there for ceremony. That's right. That is true. Delcrim was like, they do have the polearm feet. They do. Crit Twitch, how are you? And the machine gun feet. Similar with. Oh, Beetlewind says similar with the guards of the Buckingham Palace. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Well, that's interesting. If you're going to carry a weapon, you really should know how to use it. That's true. I have thoughts about swords. I want to see what Ice Bunny has to say. I try my best not to relapse my eating disorder or get hard with a seasonal depression. Yesterday, I talked with my brother and he asked if Tivoli has open and if the rules for CPH have changed. And when I tell him to stay home and safe, after that, I was crying, my eyes soggy. So I found a challenge where I go for a 10-minute walk. Walks are good, Ice Bunny. And look, we're in the time of social distancing, and we will get through this time. It took a while we will get through this time. We will get through it. We just have to, I mean, I think New Zealand's already like in a good space. Like, we will get there. I don't know when the United States will get there, but I have faith that y'all Europeans will get there very soon. Well, maybe not all the Europeans. I know that the British government was a little skeptical, so I don't know when they'll get there. But I feel like Italy and I feel like continental Europeans will get there soon. I think so. Yes. J-Rap says, Crit Switch, this is what happens when chat gets active. Trooper's mind starts thinking about different things based on how many people are chatting. That's true. That's true. Balrog says, I assume you also read about the sack of Rome in 1527 and what the Swiss Guard did then. No, Balrog, I didn't. You should tell me about the sack of Rome, because this sounds like it's going to be a really amazing story, and also I need to know. All right, I gotta run back to ERP, getting ready for a game. Oh, have fun at ERP, and I want to know what the game is. And then maybe we can, you know. The rifles and the guards outside of Buckingham Palace carry are typically not loaded, so they're really, really good with their bayonets. Oh, that's so interesting, Beetle Lens. Oh. Ooh. Atomica says, well, I mean, could you imagine if the Pope Queen were attacked and 10 guys with Smyrna pikes just stood there because they never swung them and had no idea how to have... Okay, that would be really bad, Atomica. That would be terrible. I figured out what TP Cramp meant, but my years on mushes made me read ERP in a very different way. On that note, please make sure you register to vote, American friends. Yes. Looks at Britain, laughs, cries, is pretty glad I moved to Canada. Oh, Susanna, I know, right? That is a rough time. Canada has a good national anthem. It does. That alone makes it worth it. Also, Susanna Grace, if you're in Canada, you might get to be best friends with Alanis Morissette. Because all Canadians know each other? It's not true. But I mean, Degrassi Junior High is Canadian. That's all. Atomic's like, if I had the money, Atomica, and useful skills, my ass would have already moved to Canada. Balrog says, okay, speaking from Norway, I will say that the initial response to COVID was great, but then since June, they've relaxed far too quickly and we're likely to be facing a second outbreak. Oh no, Balrog, that is a bummer. Because, you know, I feel like I was like, let's go Europe. But New Zealand's doing really well, I think, right? Tokrimba says, re-ERP, it's EncounterCon for the next 2 days. TP Grat is in the first one, still in Nacht. Oh, cool. By the way, the Pope's guards are like SEALs from the training, just the uniforms are a joke. Yeah, and they're not a joke. They're you know, they're ceremonial. Make sure you register to vote is vote shaming. Well, I mean, if a person... In Australia, it's the law that you must vote. In the United States, we have very low voter turnout and also voter suppression, and people do not want you to vote. And if you also do not want to vote and participate, I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it. If a person chooses not to do their duty as a citizen, there's nothing I can do about that. You know what I mean? So that's it. Like, if you do not want to participate in the democracy, which is not only your right and duty as a citizen, because you just don't feel like it, then that is on you. That's your choice. People choose to do what they want to do. And if you don't vote and you're American, you will be contributing to our reputation as one of the worst and least participatory democracies in the country, in the world. So not voting will continue to allow the rest of the world to mock us for being bad at democracy. So good on you. Good on you. Continue to help make us the specialness that we are. Do what you want to do. Like, I'm not the boss of you. Same in Denmark. This is Ice Bunny. My friend's girlfriend is in Canada and is going to move to Florida. Oh, interesting. Susanna Grace says, I mean, my husband went to the same school as a bunch of actors around the same time, so I'm inclined to believe that all Canadians know each other. See, I mean, this is a thing. This is a thing. With how much stuff is F right now, I'm okay with vote shaming. Atomica, the United States is all about freedom. The United States is about freedom. And that freedom is often the freedom to do things. PH says, the Netherlands are in a similar boat. We've relaxed far too much about COVID. Oh no, the government is realizing this, but now the anti-mask people are making more and more. Wait, why do you have anti-mask people in the Netherlands? I thought you were better than the United States. Come on now. How are sort of lefty people in the US? Like, look, here's the thing, PH. Lefty people in the US have a fantasy of Europe being perfect in every way. You are ruining our fantasy. PH, don't ruin the fantasy. Don't ruin the fantasy. Beetlewind says, you see are the Swiss Guard and the civil uniforms and their pole arms. What you probably don't see are the Swiss Guard in plain clothes and their guns. Danes are voting crazy, but voting is Tuesdays. I gotta go for a bit, but I will private college information. Yes, that's because we're the least representative trooper. The people don't get policies they want, whether they vote or not, scientifically proven. I don't know if we're the least representative. I think we're representative in different ways, but Krellin. I would be very unhappy living in a system. Freedom to shame. No, Jeremy, that's not, you don't have that freedom. Bad at democracy is a privilege of Germans, and they have to vote on Sundays. Dumb people are not the monopoly in the US, no matter what we think. I know, but like, isn't it comforting? Anti-mask people are fucking everywhere. It's just the ones in the US are louder. I miss you too, Bill. Oh, I miss you so much. Should talk. Here's the thing. I think about this a lot because Americans really like to talk about how like everybody else's country is like better democratically and whatnot and so forth and so on. And I think it's different, and like we have problems in the US, you know what I mean? Like we do. I'm not going to say we don't because we do. But there are some things about the parliamentary system that I don't like very much. And there are things about our system that I prefer. There are things about, and all the different systems in Europe are all a little bit different. There are things about the various parliamentary systems in Europe that I prefer, and there are things about the system that we have here that I prefer. There's a bit of a mix of things. I think it's so for me, it's like, I can't go like, oh, it's this way. Like when I was younger, you know, when I was a younger person, I was like, Europe is perfect and they've got it all together and we suck. That was like, cause I was a San Francisco liberal. So that's what I did. And then I lived in Europe and I was like, ooh, maybe it's a little bit more complicated than that. Maybe the idea that everything we do in the US is really, really bad and everything they do in Europe is better is not exactly accurate. And so now I sort of see it with a lot more nuance where there are some things that I think they do really well there. I think there's some things we do well here, and that some kind of like an interesting mix would be interesting. I think it's just not as easy. That's all. And then I will tell you a thing. But the sack of Rome in 1527, says Balrog, was basically a result of the mutiny by mostly German Protestant troops against the Roman emperor. During the actual sack, the 189 Swiss guards held the last line of defense in the Teutonic cemetery against far superior numbers, and the final 42 fought to enable the Pope to escape. Wow. So I bet they have like such major esprit de corps. And now I too need to pop over to EncounterCon. Hey, Balrog, I'll see you around. We have to figure out we'll have to figure out about EncounterCon. I'm gonna figure it out. Beetlewind says it's probably under counter roleplay. My theory on the apathy of the US toward voting is that you were asked to vote for far too many officials, judges, sheriffs, county clerks. The man who follows you down the street in his underwear, says Beetlewinds. Actually, Beetlewinds, I think it's something much deeper than that. I think it's something about the American character itself. We will talk history another time. Yes, more history. Which I'll get to. I want to finish the scroll. The anti-mask folks are why Stacy and I haven't been out unless absolutely necessary, never without a mask. Yeah, me too. I'm almost driven more crazy by the people wearing their masks in a way that isn't any better than not wearing a mask in the first place. They're like wearing their, Hey, Courier, how are you? Did you hear that the Germans have anti-maskers and the demo they had today were dissolved by the police because the rules that they were... Oh, yeah. Jared says, yet when people protest freedom in other countries, they all bring out the US flags and pictures of our president. Yeah. The US can suck and Europe can also still suck. That's true, Krellin. That's true. But also in slightly different ways. Like there's like, you know, like we could put things together in good ways. PH is like, there are a lot of countries in Europe that are not great. I know that as a person who is older, but like a lot of younger idealists like to imagine that Europe is perfect. You know what I mean? Like there's this imagination of Europe as like, it has the perfect education system. It has the perfect healthcare system, has a perfect political system. It's great in all ways, but Americans are also kind of ignorant about what Europe is like. Like we have an imagination of Europe, which is not necessarily what Europe actually is. And we don't see. Also, the mutiny was in the part of the home. Oh, thank you, Balrog. Sure, but they should spend 10 years in dark and see if they still like it. Maybe we could switch to a fictional dystopia of Outer Worlds instead. Maybe. Oh, headshot to Discord? Yes. Oh, good. I'll just say 25% VAT on everything. Well, also, Bill, we just have to play World of Warcraft again. That's what we have to do, Bill. I will say, Ice Bunny, I never really the VAT never bothered me so much, the VAT tax, because, I mean, we have sales tax. It's usually not 25%. But the VAT tax never bothered me because then because also you've got healthcare. So, like, I wasn't, like, it never bothered me. It never bothered me. Nose out. Ugh. I also feel like in the States, you guys are far too diffident toward your politicians. You have so many arguments about civility and politeness. In the UK, we know that even politicians we like are nasty. Yeah, so Beetle Ones, these are some of the things about the US. The US doesn't see Europe's racist problems, but it has a lot of them. You know what's so funny about that? Beetle Ones says, Europe is hella racist, especially the UK. Curious, like, it's easy to imagine Europe is not racist. Spoiler, it's very racist. Yeah, but what's so interesting to me about this, can I tell you, little note, this is so fascinating to me, sorry, because, oh gosh, now I have to tell you this thing. So interesting. One of the other differences that I think is really, like, so I've always been once I actually moved to Europe, I became really obsessed with the imagination the US has of Europe and the imagination that Europe has of the US, both of which are fictions and not true, and in different ways, and what those fictions do for people. So for example, one of the things I think is different between the US and the UK is that the US is pretty open about how messed up it is. Not the UK, Europe in general. The US is pretty messed up about how is pretty open. Like, we advertise our messed upness in our media all the time, and that's not necessarily the case in Europe as much. But one of the things I think is really fascinating is that Europe is super racist. Like, it is. Europe is super racist. But what's fascinating about that is that Europeans like to imagine that they're not racist. And that's really fascinating, right? So like and I have to tell you a story. It's really interesting in this way that was like, oh, well, this is interesting. Ice Bunny says, you can be lucky and wait for a month to get treatment in a public health system here, or you have to fight to get treatment for the private system for free. I mean, like, when I was in Germany, the German health system was pretty great and I had really no problems. Although trans stuff in the UK is not looking good at all. So this is a new thing that I think is really interesting about discussions of racism, and I see it a lot. And I'm going to give you the most recent example. So the Game of Thrones card game by Fantasy Flight Games. Fantasy Flight Games has discontinued the line. They finished it, but there's a community that still plays the game. It's like Magic, right? A competitive card game. And the European countries are all racist in different ways too. Yes, you get like a diversity of racism. Yet many countries try to base their democracy system on the US when moving away from socialism or communism, or their idea of the US. Like, very often it's not necessarily what we actually do, but what we imagine that we do, what people imagine that we do. You know, I know in Ireland, most people I know had drunk the Ireland's not racist. Cool. Yeah. The US, even if the US had even an unoppressive, yeah. Europe, we don't hate different people because their skin color, unless they're from a different country. Then we super hate them. Also, those white people from those other countries are also smelling dumb. Oh yeah, yeah. Also, there are a lot of neo-Nazis in Europe. But anyway, so in this Game of Thrones card game community, right? The way that the Game of Thrones card game community is pretty international, and by that I mostly mean the UK, the US, and Europe. Although there are some people from Japan who play. But anyway, so what they call their why does this keep saying Nephilim? I don't even know. Europe is so racist they don't even realize it. Just ask your average European their opinion about the Roma. Yes, and then it'll come out real fast, and you're like people that I thought were like super progressive, like my buddies, started talking about Rome, and I was like, whoa, hold on. Anyway, so they talk in Game of Thrones, we talk about the various metas. So like, I was a member of the Boston meta. There's the Boston meta, the Toronto meta. There's the UK meta, the Spanish meta, the Dutch meta. So like, they're like basically different sort of communities, and we tend to talk about them based on location. And what happened was that there's like a council of people. I don't know all the details of how the structure is organized, but there's like a council of like leaders that do planning and organizing for the tournaments and whatever. Isn't that better? If they're basing it on the heart of the intent, that's ideal. The goal is not to make a mini US, but one that's goals to promote freedom and power of the citizens. J-Rab, but they're not always basing it on the ideal. Sometimes they're basing it on, especially when people are moving away from socialism, it depends on what that means. Oftentimes you'll get like Thatcher, right? You'll get people who are like kind of basically neoliberals who are like, oh, in the United States, they do these things. Like, they don't have any kind of regulations, like safety regulations for workplaces. We should have that too, which is actually not true. We do have some. We are trying to dismantle them, but we do have them. So like, sometimes people sort of imagine the US as this place that is actually harsher than we really are, and then they want that super harshness, but that's actually not necessarily accurate. Something about the Irish traveling people. Oh yeah. One of the last left, although according to basically half the Irish people, that's a good thing. Oh no. So there are these different metas, right? And there's this sort of council of organizers, and there's this woman, and she's from one of the U.S. metas. And okay, so what you need to know is that the Spanish meta has had a long history of being I'm going to say sexist is what I'm going to say. What do I mean by meta? Meta is, so if you're playing a game like Magic the Gathering, in this case it's the Game of Thrones, the communities of people who play, we call them metas. So like there's the Boston meta, which are all the players that play Game of Thrones in Boston. There's the Spanish meta, which are all the players that play Game of Thrones in Spain. There's the UK meta, all the people who play, or I wonder if London has more than one, if the UK has more than one meta. If they have like a London meta and also like a Manchester meta, or I don't know if they might have more than one. They might have more than one meta. I do mean group, but it's not just group. It is group, but it is used in competitive games. It's also used in a slightly different way. If it's used like in two different ways. The original way of using it is to understand how people are playing. So for example, in the card game, you can make decks any kind of way, right? You can make all sorts of different kinds of decks that you could play. And the meta is what people are playing, right? So if, for example, the meta is that everybody's playing really, really fast decks with really small numbers of units, if you know that that's what the meta is playing, then you can make a deck that will beat all those fast decks. If you know that everybody in the meta, that the meta game is what it's really short for. I understand meta is the most ideal way to go about a given task. Technically, meta usually means that it's one level above a thing. So meta, technically, what meta is sort of meta is the most used. Scholastically, we don't talk about it as most used. We talk about it as, and when people say meta, they don't mean it in terms of most used. So meta means transcending, right? It's a prefix meaning transcending. So our definition is, so here you go. Showing or suggesting an explicit awareness of itself or oneself as a member of its category. So it's self-referential. So to rise above, to change into something better, right? So if I look at, okay, so let's say I'm going to be looking at a soccer game, let's say. So if I'm going to analyze the soccer game, I would say, okay, well, this player did this, and then they passed the ball to so-and-so, or football, right, for your Europeans. They passed the ball to so-and-so, so passes the ball to so-and-so. If I did a meta-analysis of the game, I would say, okay, well, this team has been screwed over by FIFA in this way. There was an earthquake in this country for right before the national team did training. So like the meta is when you step out of it and you think about sort of like this sort of explicit awareness of the thing itself. You can analyze the game, you can analyze Game of Thrones and say, okay, well, how does the game work? But then if you do the meta game, Leiden says it's the strategy outside of the game based on what decks people use most commonly, right? So you can think like, how do I make the very best deck possible based on what the cards are? And then you're in it. But if you go meta and you step outside, you're like, okay, well, actually, what I notice is that everybody plays this card. Everybody's playing this card. So I should put in my deck a card that will counter the card that everyone's playing. Or everybody's playing really big monsters. So I should I should make a deck that counters big monsters, right? So it's the stepping outside and sort of have that kind of like larger awareness. It's like looking at the bigger picture it's looking at the bigger picture in a more self-aware way, basically. Half back passes to center, back to wing, back to center. Center holds it. Yeah. Oh, get your brows in. That's so exciting. And so metagame, right, is this sort of awareness of how people are playing the game, so that you're like, it's not just, oh, I want to make the best deck possible. I think this is the best deck, but it may not be the best deck if everybody's playing something different, right? So understanding that sort of bigger picture. But the thing about the meta game is that each community plays a little bit differently. So Boston tends to play in one way, but maybe Toronto plays in a different way. Maybe London plays in a different way. And so what we started calling, we would say, okay, what is the meta like in Boston? And then, you know, the concept from art history, yeah. So people would say, well, what is the meta like in Boston? And that ends up getting shorter to the Boston meta. So people say, oh, you know, who do you play with? Oh, I play with the Boston meta. So meta becomes both the group, but then also the idea of the style of play and of that particular community. And the Spanish meta has been historically, let's just say, super sexist. Now, and let me tell you what I mean by that. Metas, these various groups, often do things to support the game, right? So like they'll hold tournaments, and like the Boston meta is going to hold a tournament, so we'll hold a tournament, we'll host one, and people will come to the Boston meta, and we'll host a tournament, and people will often sort of create special prizes that are unique to that particular meta. So like we might make a play mat that has like sort of like a Boston themed thing, something kind of fun. And the Spanish meta would get cards made, special cards. So in Game of Thrones, there are factions. There are 8 factions, like they're the Lannisters and the Starks. And there's like a house card that you don't actually play in the game, but you just have out so people know what your house card is. And they would make custom house cards. But almost all of their custom house cards were pinups. It'd be like, so like for House Lannister, it'd be Cersei, but she'd be naked in flimsy clothing. And then like for House Stark, it would be Sansa, but she'd be naked. And like they would do this all the time. They'd make these very like naked pinup sort of cards. And a bunch of people were like, oh, we feel uncomfortable with this, right? There's like, and they have like that a habit of doing this. And people kept saying like, hey, dudes in the Spanish meta, could you maybe stop doing that? And they're like, what? And so one time, no, it was always women naked. And people complained about this enough that they decided that as a joke, for 1 year, they'd make pinups of dudes, but the dudes were not hot or even pinup. It was like more like a joke, like, oh, haha, we have dudes. And then they kept doing it. And they also did one where they had like Littlefinger and Sansa. It was like kind of like, that was like one of the most recent kind of big moments, and like they're kind of harassing. So anyway, there's this woman who works for the US she's like part of one of the US metas, and she's one of these sort of moderators, organizers, and apparently they've been kind of harassing her a lot. And she finally had enough, and she just said in a private message chat, the Spanish meta is so sexist, is what she said. Would the Foxhole be interested in online museum visits? I know art should be seen in real life, but we have to use the tools we have. Put it in Media Musings. Put the links in Media Musings, Ice Bunny. So she said in a kind of a private chat, the Spanish meta who had been harassing her were sexist. Now, I did not know that because that was a private chat. And what ends up happening, by the way, this is the race conversation, by the way. So what ends up happening is that one of the leaders of the Spanish meta made an open post on the Facebook group for Game of Thrones and said, everyone, I want you all to know I am hereby protesting that this woman, and posted her, like screen capped her private post that said that the Spanish meta was sexist, and said, this woman just said a racist thing against Spanish people, and we want her kicked out. We want her like removed. And a bunch of people were like, Spanishness is not a race, so that is not racist. Like, that's not how that works. Right? Like, that's not That's not how that works. And also, y'all are being super sexist. But it became this huge argument about whether or not you could be racist against Spain. And what ended up happening, and this was really interesting, was that the Spanish meta was like, you Americans, basically Americans are kind of the only ones who are racist. And the idea of racism is basically an American imperialist idea. And basically nobody else is racist. And if you call anyone else racist who's not an American, you're being an American imperialist, because there is no racism in Europe or really anywhere else besides the US. And like we try, and people were like, but Spain is not a race, it is a nationality, and within Spain there are many different races of people. And also, she was not talking about all of Spain, she was talking about your group of people, right? But yeah, I know, yeah, so there you go, right? But I've noticed this quite a lot, actually. I've noticed that that one of the and there was another space where I just heard it too. PH, goodbye Spanish dude. Good luck in the fantasy land we apparently live where logic is upside down. Yeah, but I've seen this, actually I saw this in another case. I've seen this now coming up a little bit more regularly, that people will, I saw it on a very irritating conversation that I was having. I was not having, I was like, I do not want to be involved in this conversation that was happening in the academic sphere, where this person who people perceived as an American, who was not an American actually, who was Guatemalan, was talking about racism in ethnomusicology, which is the study of music. Well, how to define ethnomusicology is a little bit complicated. The more modern definition of ethnomusicology is studying of music using ethnography, like anthropology, but the more practical one is studying non-Western music, right? And okay, but you absolutely can be racist against the Spanish. Except that'd be like saying that you can be racist against Americans. That'd be like saying you'd be racist against Americans. And I don't think you can be racist against Americans. And I don't think you can be racist against French people. And I don't think you're being racist against Kentuckians. I think you can be a lot of things, but Spanishness is not a race. And conflating nationality with race only supports ethno-nationalism. It's xenophobic, yeah. Prejudice, yes. Discriminating against nationalities, you can totally do. That happens all the time. And you can racialize nationalities, but that's really, I mean, there are people who are Chinese who are Argentinian, like who are ethnically Chinese but are Argentinian. And if so like, I mean, Spain has got a lot of ethnic diversity in it. And whenever you make a place a race, like if you're like the German race, that's bad. That's bad. Do you know what I mean? Like that's no good. Xenophobic is one, but the people of the Middle Eastern roots are often receiving in the end of, yeah. I think Peru has a lot of ethnically Japanese people. It does. Lupita Nyong'o's from Mexico, right? So like there's a way in which the conflation of nationalism with race tends to be what ethno-nationalists want to do, and it's like, you know? Anyway, so she was trying to call out racism within the field of ethnomusicology, and some dude was like, you're an American imperialist by saying that we have racism outside of the United States. And she's like, I'm not even American. Like, I'm from Guatemala. But like, so yeah, and then if you throw religion in there too, it's really stuck deep. Oh, yeah, right? That becomes also really tricky. Really, really tricky. Yes. By the way, we're going to start the game. Let's just start it. Yeah, and like we try to like we racialize it. Oh, I should do this. Hold on. There we go. Yeah, people are weird. And of course, I got it. And then of course also nationality. I'm pretty sure you just argued that race isn't a thing. Well, yeah, race isn't a thing. I mean, like, it's a thing. I feel like there are fewer folders on your desktop than usual. There are. I cleaned up some. I cleaned some up. I mean, race is a social construct, as is nationality. Like, they're both social constructs, but they're different social constructs. And that's all. Yeah, I cleaned up some. By the way, I'm getting a little bit of shenanigans with my connection. So I'm going to turn on the air conditioning in the other room so it'll cool down the PS4 because it might be hot in there. Give me a second. Hold on. Ooh, oh, your browser done. Oh, excellent. So the thing is, I will say, lamps, time to shine. I will also say that just because something is a social construct doesn't mean that it is not real or a thing, is what I want to say. Tornado happened when I tried to get my browser. Oh my gosh. Did they just like, no, you don't get to have your browse done? That seems excessive. Yeah, I think that when, like, here's the thing about social constructs. When people say something is a social construct, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have real impact on people's lives. It also doesn't mean that you can just ignore it or that it has no meaning. In many ways, our bodies are social constructs as well. Yeah, like our bodies are also social constructs, and our bodies are like material things. Oh, come back when you can, Crit Twitch. Nah, I went home voluntarily. Hairdresser needed to run home and take care of the kiddos. Oh yeah. And I think this is the thing that people often are like, oh, race is a social construct, so basically there's no race. And I was like, well, but we've constructed it. Do you know what I mean? Like, buildings are social constructs, and I don't want to run my head into one because that's going to hurt, and I'm going to, bleed all over the place. Don't break my mind about my bod being a social... Crit Twitch, your body is a social construct, and I would tell you why that is, but I clearly have to wait until you get back. Although I might tell you how that is anyway, because... All right, well, I've got to do some things. Rebecca and Anders were hired to clear a site for Edgewater. Head there with Nyoka. Which doesn't look like it's here. That's fine. The Scholar, I don't have to do that one. But is it a Wonderland? Maybe. Sprat Kings. Drugs. I could maybe do that one. But there's a thing I need to do. Someone hired Catherine's team. I think I should do that one. Well, okay. So we're going to do that. I don't think a building is a social construct, Trooper. That's really pushing usefulness. No, I'd actually, but it is, right? Because what is a building? What makes a good building? What we think about buildings, how we design them, is what kind of functions they are, if they're public or private, what we think about privacy. Those are like those. That's all. Those are also like that we need to have buildings, what they should look like, how they should be made, what how we understand them to be, all of those things are social constructs. Like the race isn't real, but he was a great role model and a friend to Benton, Johnny, and Haji. What is a pub is a social construct? Yes, that's right, Beetle Lens. Until closing times, it becomes very antisocial. But like the idea of a pub is completely a social construct. The idea that that there should be a place called a public house. The idea of a public house is a social, like there's a lot, right, that goes into, because these all things have social functions, right? And what, like, yeah, they're not objective things, right? Any disabled person will tell you that the idea of how a building should be is definitely, oh my gosh, Courier 3, yes, oh my gosh, that's a great point. Ooh, hello, what's going on? And you know, I was thinking about this as a buildings as social construct, and one of the ways I was thinking about this was, is everything still alive? It is. Hold on. There we go. I think it's all dead. Okay. All right, I'm checking out. I've had too much of this semantic nonsense this week. All right. But Crone, this is not semantic nonsense, though. I think it's actually really quite seriously important. Hey, Dutch Teddy. So, for example, there are a lot of buildings that are not wheelchair accessible at all. And people will say, oh, but we cannot change the building, right? Because the building is a historical building. And so it should look like this, right? So there's this whole like idea of, well, but this is a historical building. This building has certain kinds of meanings. And so its function and structure should not change, right? So there's a lot of how we understand what buildings should be, if we think of them as sacred or not sacred, if they should be changing or not changing. Like there's a lot in there that is all social. Beetleman says, okay, Trevor, I'm going to be cruel here. You have used that pistol exclusively, and I was, for the past 3 streams, so all the other weapons you're hoarding. No, but sometimes I use the other weapons too. Like I sometimes like use the other ones. Just because it was in a certain way doesn't mean that we should keep doing it that way. And PH, that is really what people are talking about. That's like one of the core elements of things being social constructs, is that recognition that of course, the recognition that the recognition that these things are not objective things, but things that are done in ways that are different over time and place, right? So when you say, if I say to you that buildings are social constructs, what I'm telling you is that how we understand what buildings are, how we build them, what we think is valuable to have in a building or not have in a building, is what their function is, how they should be built, how we feel about them, design structures, technologies, who gets access to buildings, who doesn't get access to buildings, whether or not buildings are private, whether or not we think of buildings as things to be privately owned or not privately owned, whether or not we think of buildings as something that can be owned at all, whether we think of them as being living or not living. Like there are all these things about the building that is all completely part of a social construct. You know what I mean? Like, and so oh gosh, and you can tell a lot about a society by what their buildings look like. And I think that becomes, and I think that's where you really that's where you can really see, right, about this is where like, this is how you can this is where like the usefulness of the idea of the social construct comes in, especially because you realize then that actually the building is not just a building by itself, but when you look at a building, you can actually learn something quite a lot about the society that constructed that building. Courier says, the problem with social constructs is that things that are built don't disappear on their own. Humanity is bad at cleaning up. Yes. Also, Courier, Iceman says, sorry, as a former special needs educator, I'm just salted because inaccessible is a wish to exclude. Yes. 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 Who gets access to buildings is also a social construct, right? And I think also the thing about social constructs, which is, I think, really important. I'll tell you, Beetlewind says, reminds me of my favorite weapon description in any game ever. In Far Cry Blood Dragon, the sniper rifle is a short-range weapon for when you panic and pick the wrong gun in the weapon wheel. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Dutch says, my house is kind of accessible. I am myself a bit disabled following my brain bleed. Ooh, not as bad as my mom, though. She had polio as a child and just 2 years before the introduction of the... Oh my gosh, Dutch Teddy, yeah. A building is both a physical object and its purpose. Yeah. Hello, Belrog. And I think the thing about social constructs, and this is, I think, the most important thing to think about social constructs, is that when this is like, what is the function? Like, why does a person say, hey, this is a social construct? One of the main reasons, and this is something that ties into what Courier was saying, actually, one of the main reasons to sort of think about things as social constructs is because it allows you to understand.
Name's Weston. Every once in a while, I set up shop along these here roads. You find yourself in need of resupply, you come on by. Care to purchase a thing or two?
Thanks. Because it then helps you understand what the thing is, how it works, what is it doing, and that it could be different. Like when you obscure the social construct of things, what that does is it makes people think that those things are inevitable, objective, non-changing, universal, and it removes the idea that these things can be changed. Krellin says, the concept of buildings are social constructs. The actual buildings is a physical thing, not a social construct. You're hitting your head against a physical thing, not the social construct. Inherent, thank you, Brad Sarad. But physical things are shaped by social constructs, right? So these things are not, cannot be, it's like when people say, if people say nature versus nurture, I say those things cannot be extricated. They're always already the same. They're always together, right? Those, like, they cannot be extricated from themselves, from themselves. Balrog says, I feel like I've walked in the middle of an interesting conversation, but I'm missing important. We're talking about social constructs, things being socially constructed. And sure, maybe you have trade, and I have a huge discount, and I'm going to sell some stuff because people want me to, and I will. I'm going to sell things because you want me to, and so I will. Name. Right. So the idea being that we can never really sell. Also, the experience adaptation can be coded and passed on genetically. Yeah, that's also true, right? And then and also the ways in which like our physical bodies, even how we understand, like, not just how we understand bodies to be are physically constructed, but also, does your society believe in eating a lot of beef? Or does your society say that certain classes of people don't get to have, only get to eat some foods? That kind of social construct of nutrition, or what constitutes a beautiful body, physically changes our bodies, right? It's like our bodies themselves are shaped physically. The physicality of our bodies are also constructed by the society we live in. And this reminds me of something that I think is super, super interesting. I don't think I have anything really good to sell here. And so this, I think, is super, super interesting. And I'm going to just sell this. What if I need it, though? What if I need it? I'm not going to sell anything. So this I thought was, and by the way, it looks like I want to get over here. So I need to walk the other way. So this I thought was super, super interesting. And it's about the construction of bodies. Verum says, reminds me of Dr. McDougall. He was helping a group of people and suggested eating brown rice, but they said brown rice was for poor people and would eat rice only, but only white rice, right? And then that then ends up impacting our physical. So here's this really cool thing I thought was really interesting. Mad Men, the TV show Mad Men, the showrunner. Social concepts are real things, right? Buildings are a social construct. It doesn't want to smash his head into one. I don't. Hell, the food you eat is so important to your physicality, they can read it in your bones hundreds of years later. That is true. But okay, Krellin, money is a social construct, and I cannot pretend like money isn't real. Just because something is a social construct doesn't mean it's not real, and doesn't mean you can just not participate in it. I think that's how we'll put it that way, right? I cannot just say, well, money's a social construct, so I'm going to just take this monopoly money and decide that counts, because that's just not gonna fly. I am not. What is this? Oh, no. I'm going to reject that. I don't want that. I know this game is about a hellish corporate future and all, but RGB Roads is pretty. It's true. It is. All right. Well, you know what? Again, our bodies are socially constructed, and I don't want to get punched by someone. There you go. Well, since you object to buildings being social constructs, our bodies, what they look like, how much strength we have, if we should have strength at all, that's all socially constructed. And I do not want to be punched in the face by somebody who has socially constructed their body to be a big old beefy fighting machine. That would be not fun at all. Oh yeah, so Mad Men, right? Our bodies are socially constructed, 100%. I love how you're talking about bodies being shaped by social constructs. Well, I'm here putting on a corset because it helps me fight dysphoria. Yeah, yes. And I mean, here we go. What do we have here? Because what you eat, what you are allowed to eat, what you should eat, that's a social construct, and that shapes your body. Whether or not we think there is one sex or two sex or three sexes or four sexes, also a social construct. Our ideas of how bodies are supposed to be might be socially constructed, but the existence of muscles and fists and bones are a product of evolution, not social construction. But that evolution is shaped by social construction, right? And that's what Bill was saying, right? That that the foods we eat change our evolution. Our evolution shifts based on our society, right? So that these are not disconnectable. You can see the marks of society on people's bodies from generation to generation. Eating cooked meat changed our brains. Yes. Hey, Origami. I look soft and petite, but I don't think you'd want to be punched by me either because I have martial arts training. Yes, and that training is, right, that we have crafted that. The specific nature of how the bones and muscles are shaped and grow is often brought by social construct. Yes. And quite radically, right? I mean, I think the ways in which our bodies are shaped by society is something quite far-reaching in ways we often don't even understand. Heck, there's a whole discussion about epigenetics and how trauma ends up being marked in the body, and that is generationally, which is super interesting. Yeah, I should have checked out when I said I was. I spent this week getting told my skin color made me racist, so I just really can't take this right now. Have a good stream. All right. When you go, I will talk about racism afterwards. Oh, a trail of blood leads away from the autoloader. Ooh. Yes. We've just learned a thing. Dutch Teddy, social construct can be changed. Yes. Not easily, but it can be done. That may cause us to change physical items or constructs, yeah. There are social constructs in the Netherlands, but for now I'm glad we have them. One of them is that people are important more than their job, yes. And so we make sure people get a living wage regardless of whether they work. Of course, if they work, they get more, yeah. Well, and that's an interesting thing, right? Because basically we are never going to be without social constructs, right? That like we will never not have them, because we live in society. Do you know what I mean? Like that is we will. It's like, well, nature versus nurture. Like, well, but we're always nurtured, right? So we will never have nature without nurture. We'll never have nurture without nature. So those things are not workable. Punching at random is against the social construct of my training. What if fitted a rocket to the prosthetic arm and punch it from a distance? Yes. Walrus. Also, Trooper, I linked a song about the final stand of the Swiss Guard in the encounter. Oh, thank you. I will do. Thank you. Ooh, thank you. Let's see. We're following a trail. And like our, so anyway, right, in Mad Men, the showrunner, Matthew Weiner. Okay, there's a smuggler tunnel, everybody. Told the actors that they had to stop working out at the gym, that the way that they were working out in the gym, because people in the 1960s did not have the same exercise equipment or same aesthetic of what physical bodies should look like as they did in the 1960s. And so he basically told them if they wanted to work out, they could only work out in the ways that people worked out in the 1960s, and that meant that they couldn't use, there was a bunch of supplements they couldn't use, a bunch of machines they couldn't use, because they didn't want, he didn't want the body, because the bodies didn't look right? The bodies they didn't look like they were bodies from the 60s. And so people had to then, if they wanted to work out, they had to change what their bodies looked like completely. And I thought that was really interesting. And they did the same thing in Game of Thrones, where basically they told the Northerners that they were not allowed to work out in a kind of a modern way, but all the people from the South were allowed to work out in a modern way because Southerners were vain or whatever. Well, this seems like a bit of a problem. I wonder how I get past that one. I hope you like power metal. I am interested in all the things. So, do you think I can crawl under this? I can. Okay. Well, that's exciting. Okay. All right. Okay. That's good. That's good. There we go. Nothing bad can ever come following a blood trail. No, nothing bad. Nothing bad at all. That's ridiculously methodized, but I can understand being focused on those details. Yeah, I mean, like, that was, I mean, Balrog, that was exceptionally weirdly detail oriented. And I wonder what I think. Like, I don't know what I think about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I haven't decided what I think about that particular level of meta-ness. I can't say what I think about it, but I know that it was a thing, and I thought that was interesting. You who I remember it's solvable. You're interested in all the. I could talk about various metal things for hours. By the way, so this is me holding back a lot. My favorite metal album is Titanium. I teach metal, but I'm not the hugest metal fan. It's not particularly my aesthetic. But like I appreciate it, and you know, and I teach it in my history of rock and roll class. I've read a lot about it. The thing is, I personally am not a particularly angry sort of a person, so the kind of and I'm not particularly aggressive. I tend towards blue more than I tend towards red, in the sense that I am more likely to feel sad about things than I am to feel mad or angry about things. I understand the catharsis in metal, but generally speaking, it is not my emotional, it's not my emotional go-to space. Yeah, sometimes you don't necessarily need to have an opinion. Some things are just enough to know about. Oh yeah, and I listen to it. So one by Metallica. Yeah. Weirdly, now this will be weird for you, right? Like, and I don't know what you'll think about this. The one album that sort of is super aggro. I wonder if I can get around this another direction. I think the answer is probably no, but I'm gonna check. Lord of the Rings did not have a strict instructions how the Hobbit should work out after filming. Oh, interesting. Frodo and the gang doesn't look like a person enjoying 7 meals a day. I will say that I don't necessarily agree with the notion of metal being angry because to me it's joyous energy, celebratory rather than any kind of catharsis. Would you say music always is emotionally charged and the concept of listening on your own? But that's personal. I don't remember how to turn them off either. My brain has a bad habit of trying to compensate for blue by pushing things in the red. I do not like it. Yes, metal's angry, but like power metal is about how. Well, it's also about. I mean, metal is as a genre. Even if the lyrics are about being sad, as a genre, the music itself is fairly aggressive. That's part of the point and the appeal of metal, is that the music itself, with the exception of like power ballads, but I will say a lot of metalheads don't like power ballads. They think that they're too girly and they find them not metal enough. So like there's like a bunch of that where they're like, oh, why'd that sellout group do that power ballad because that's not really metal. I will note that. Symphonic metal is superb. That's the genre I know most about. I've written essays about. Oh, nice. Albeit not in an academic setting, mostly for fun and such. Yeah. Oh Lord, don't get me started on the not metal people. Oh, there's gatekeeping. Like, whoa. Like the gatekeeping in metal is kind of epic, I will say. But yeah, I mean, it's oh, and this is where I end up getting that's a natural response to things that cause sadness as a coping mechanism. Oh, see, whereas like I lean into the sadness, like if I'm feeling blue, I want like the bluest music ever is what I like. That's like it. Like yeah, I like if I'm blue, I want more blue. Tends to be how I go. Like in the 80s, there were people who were listening to metal, and I was listening to Joy Division and The Cure and The Smiths, and bluer music. Oh, so this is what's really interesting about grunge. Side note. So, now I'm blue, but so this is genre definitions. I always get really frustrated with. I get frustrated when people make definitions of a genre that are ahistorical, is what I'm going to say. Right? People will say, oh, well, real metal is XYZ, and then we'll define real metal, but their definitions will be, like, if you go by their definitions, it will basically exclude all the beginning of metal music, right? Because they want it to be a certain kind of hardness. But if you listen to like early metal in the late 70s, mid to late 70s, it's actually not as hard as stuff that came later. And so if you define metal in a way that's not going to include Judas Priest, let's say, then I feel like your definition is not a good definition. They do the same thing with punk. People are like, oh, that's not punk. I was like, yeah, but it was punk, so I don't know what to tell you. I grew up with metal. My dad raised me on it. I bought my first Iron Maiden tape when I was 6 years old, so I've been swimming in this sea for over 2 decades. So I've been, people tell me I'm not a true metalhead because I enjoy things like Amaranth or the more pop-inspired Within Temptation. See, that's really irritating. Sorry. That's super irritating. Balrog. I don't like it. I don't like that at all. I use metal to rebel against my mother's Christian conservatism. That makes sense. Like my favorite metal song is a bard song by Blind Guardian that's literally a dude with a lute. Not literally a dude with a lute.
How'd you get past my traps anyway?
Forget about that. What are you doing in this cave?
Hiding from the marauders that hit us, obviously. Now your turn.
I imagine the line between early punk and early metal are fuzzy. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, that we have these much more solidified boundaries now, but the line between new wave and punk, no wave, like the mid 70s, those genres were very unclear. They were very unclear and very fuzzy. Like they were sort of in there, but I think about, for example, Led Zeppelin. Is Led Zeppelin the first metal band or the first prog band? Is Zeppelin prog or is it metal? Well, that's not really easy to say. They're like, are they hard rock or are they prog rock? Well, they're kind of both. Do you know what I mean? Like, they, like the lines are, and a lot of the metal bands were also, a lot of the first bands that we're going to think of as being metal, were blues bands first. Like a lot of them were British blues bands. So early metal has a lot more blues in it than like metal from the 90s. So that's going to be tricky. And like, and part of this is about lineage and change, right? Or Jared's a good question. Or is Zeppelin country? Or is it blues rock? Like, okay, so what is Zeppelin? And people, because Zeppelin was so huge, everybody wants to claim them as their thing only. But like, I don't think anyone can really claim them as their thing only because they're sort of doing a lot of different things, right? I remember how ticked people were when Jethro Tull won the first metal Grammy. I remember that too. But I understand why they got it, and I also understand why people were mad. Do you know what I mean? What's the best way to donate to you? I see a few options linked, but I know different ones take different cut of the money. Oh, Leiden, that's a great question. That depends on you. If you sub, then you get our emotes. If you you can also be a member of the Patreon, and that will go to the RPG streams. Twitch takes like 50% cut. And I think like Patreon takes like 30 something cents. So that kind of depends on you there, or you can do tips and bits, whichever you like best. Whichever you like will best. I always hear Deep Purple credited as being proto-metal or the first metal band that wig big. Yeah, and Balrog, that's hard because they could also be called hard rock, right? So then it becomes like, so then what is your line between hard rock and heavy metal? What is your line there? And then why? Why is that your line? And so for me, genres are social constructs, and I'm not mad. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not mad about, like, I'm like, I just kind of think that we just have to note that these things are very messy, and who you include and who you exclude becomes interesting. And sometimes who you include and who you exclude is messed up. You know what I mean? Yes. I tend not to subscribe to the notion that any one band was a progenitor for an entire genre. Yes, because that's a silly idea. Noting their influence is a great thing, but everything has so many different aspects to it. Who was the, Beetle Wins was the first new metal band. I think what's interesting, now you got talking about music. And sometimes who people include, exclude can be very, very telling. Yes, and that's when I want to be like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing right now? Let me look at your wounds.
That feels a mite better. Wish I had something to give you, but I gnawed through my last Spratwurst an hour ago.
And I think about, so I wanted to tell this thing, which I think is super interesting, right? Catherine told me some of her couriers had gone missing out here.
Nice to know she cares.
She does.
Catherine had us making drops for some big shot client out here. And before you ask, I don't know who they are. Or were. The whole point of making drops in the middle of nowhere was to keep their identity and whereabouts a secret.
I don't trust this guy. You shoot him in the face. Audio is low. Here we go. Let me turn this up for you. So, if we think about, so there's, if y'all are into metal, for all of you metalheads, I recommend a book. It's kind of old now. It's from the 90s. It's from the 90s, so it's older now. So it won't cover more modern metal. But if you're into metal and you don't mind reading academic texts, the first really big metal book was called Running with the Devil by Robert Walser, who was one of my professors. And it's Power, Madness, and Gender in heavy metal music. So it's this look at heavy metal music, and it talks about like classical music, madness, gender, sexuality, so all these sort of like larger topics, and looking at metal that way. And if you're into metal and you don't mind reading academic books, I think it's accessible enough. Well, let me put it this way: a lot of metalheads have pretty decent music thoughts, so it might be. I think it's probably more accessible to metalheads than it might be to people who aren't metalheads. Metalheads, that's a genre of people who are kind of detail oriented about music. So I recommend that book. It's good. Quick aside, while we're talking about Deep Purple, have you listened to Concerto for Group and Orchestra? I have. Yes. Yeah, I know. You think they're dead?
The Marauders knew we were coming. Rigged the bridge with explosives and everything. If they found us, my guess is they found the client too.
Well, maybe. Where'd the Marauders go?
Last I saw, they were heading back up the hill. You'll see it on the right when you get out of here. If you got the sand to go after them, I'm sure Catherine can reward you for your trouble. Me? I'm headed back to Fallbrook just as soon as I've caught my breath.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for reminding me. So anyway, back to metal, and I had another thought too. So back to metal. Sort of structurally, when you sort of think about how metal develops, that one of the things that it's doing is that a lot of metal will have a fairly, and this is kind of interesting, a kind of an oppressive drum and there's a lot of like oppressive structures in metal, like in the ground of the grounding of metal itself, that then you transcend through your guitar solo very often. Also, you often will transcend it through the voice of the singer, depending on the singer's voice, depending on the subgenre of metal. But sort of like a bit more classic, the singer's voice is going to cut through and transcend out, as will the guitar solo. So what you get in metal, sort of structurally, is the sound of kind of an oppressive structure, which we're also going to be often going to be thinking about whatever things are oppressing you, right? And then being able to break through and transcend out of that oppressive structure, usually and often through distortion, which tends to be either in the voice from the guitar, and sort of like intensity, which tends to be read a bit more aggressively. Because to get distortion before you had like pedals, it's easier to get distortion now. But before you had pedals, to get distortion was actually, you have to do a lot of force. You need a lot of force and volume to get distortion. So it's like it's a push through. I was watching a mob series on Netflix, and it had a flashback to a crime that was 40 years ago in 1980, and I was like, nuh-uh, the 80s were like 5 years ago. Beetle ones, I agree with you. I often end up thinking that Concerto was somewhat the tiny spark that eventually was symphonic metal as we know it today. And I'm breaking my own don't credit one single band rule. Oh, that's what I just wanted to say. And then Metallica did the S&M concert. Well, but the thing is about symphonic metal, metal had long been invested in the Baroque. Do you know what I mean? Like when you think about all the jokes about, like there's a lot of Baroque music in metal before they even went symphonic. Like most of those guitar players were practicing Baroque scales, right? And so that connection to classical music is long standing. They just didn't get into the symphonies yet, but like it was just like, you know what I mean? It was just like right there because of the intensity. Like, I mean, there's just so much classical music. And it's specifically Baroque. It's specifically Baroque music is what they're really getting into, which is often why, side note, a lot of metal music is modal. There's a lot of modal music in heavy metal, which is why, side note, because classical music has often been Baroque, which is before our modern tonality. It's one of the reasons why all that bardcore stuff works out so well, because medieval is often already, metal is often already in medieval modes. And so if you make it then sound medieval, it often works because it's already written in basically kind of a quasi-medieval structure, so which I think is super interesting. There's a particular guitar duet in Judas Priest's Ram It Down song that I point to because you can hear almost the same song played on violins in Lord of the Dance. Also, do you know, I'm going to get to the thing about, by the way, I'm going to get to the thing about there are things about originating. Do you know Heavy Duty Rock and Roll from Spinal Tap, which is like 1980? It's like the mockumentary from 1980 something or other. Give me a map. Where am I? Okay, I need to go this way. This way. Oh no. Please do not even apologize, because this is exactly what we do here. What we do here is get derailed. Balrog. You've never seen Spinal Tap? Oh my goodness. Balrog. You, my friend, need to see Spinal Tap. I just don't know what to tell you. That's a thing you need to do. I mean, look, you can do what you want to do. I'm not the boss of you. You do what you like. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. You do you. You do you. Like this is like, you know, you have agency. I won't tell you what to do if you want to do it. It's this huge. It is. I would recommend it. But so if for those of you who don't know the film This Is Spinal Tap, it is a fake documentary about a fake band, Spinal Tap, and it is sort of making fun of this kind of late 70s, early 80s metal bands. And it did it so well that a lot of metal bands were like, oh yeah, they're talking about us. They were talking about us. But like, it's actually like they were not specifically talking about one band, but they've got all these songs. And one of the songs is, gosh. There's so much in that film. There's so much that they're mocking is all I'm going to say. There's a lot of mockery going on in Spinal Tap. Yeah, Best in Show is also good. Also Mighty Wind. There's a lot of goodness in there. So we need to go, I think, this way. So there's this song, Heavy Duty Rock and Roll is one of the Spinal Tap songs. Oh, the Tiny Stonehenge is so good, Beetle Wins. But also, in some ways, I kind of feel like Spinal Tap is super Led Zeppelin, because they often do that mix between sort of prog and hard rock in a way. Stonehenge is kind of the proggy part. But anyway, so in Heavy Duty Rock and Roll, and I've got to get to Nirvana, don't let me forget, about Transcendence. Oh, Swarm. Oh, hi. Hello. Metalocalypse. Okay, so there's a song, Heavy Duty Rock and Roll, right? That was a good show. And the song is all about like how super hard they are and how like heavy duty their rock and roll is. You know, it's like, you know, don't want no cushy life. You know, don't want no something, won't take me no wife. I just want to, you know, it's like this, like how hard we are, right? I just want to make your eardrums bleed. Heavy duty rock and roll. Yes, it's all right. And then they get to the big guitar solo, right? After they talk about like how heavy duty the rock and roll is, and I just want to make your eardrums bleed. And they're like, oh, we need the heavy duty rock and roll. And so they get to the guitar solo. Balrog, you should drop YouTube links in our Discord in Media Musings so that people can like watch it later, and this way I won't miss the link. So they get to the big guitar solo, and
You don't have to do this. Just let us down from here. The humidity is really uncomfortable. Lying. You scared.
But hold on, give me a second. I need to kill this person. What is the point of a sniper rifle?
Someone else will clean this up, right?
For heaven's sakes. I don't get it just in the face. So Nirvana was so the opposite of to us as techno kids. Yeah, so Discord, that's the way to go. So they get to the big guitar solo, right? After like they're saying about how heavy duty the rock and roll is, like right? And the guitar solo is
I didn't mean what I said about your outfit. It's
ba-da-na-na-na, bum 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 ba-dum-dum.
Happy to see that again.
What's that
Ba-da-da-da-dum, bum, 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 ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-dun, dun, dun, da-da-da-dun, dun, da-da-dun, dun, 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 da-da-dun. Right, so like it's basically like full-on Baroque classical music. You know, it's like the heaviest duty rock and roll is like Vivaldi or whatever, and that's hilarious, right? Like that's gonna make me laugh. So anyway, that's some goodness. Spinal Tap has Michael McLean, Lenny from Laverne and Shirley, and Shadow from yes. I mean, it's like, and so you're like, oh yeah, I get the joke you're making, and also it's true. Like a lot of those bands were getting their classical music on like whoa. So yes, it's good. It's good, and I recommend it. Oh hi, how are you? There we go. I think one of those scientists got killed, by the way. I think we didn't say them quickly enough, and I feel bad about it, maybe. Anyway, but to go back to Transcendence, was that not Anaconda? Yes, it was. It was Anaconda music from Mozart. So like they're like heaviest duty rock and roll is Mozart, right? And like that is just hilarious to me. So here's the interesting thing, right, about Transcendence. So you think about sort of metal as about having sort of like this sort of oppressive state, and then transcending that oppressive state, usually through quite a lot of aggressive power, often read as angry, frustrated, but not necessarily. But there's particularly kind of like a aggressive power that usually comes through guitar solos, usually, sometimes also the voice, especially Bruce Dickinson and the rest of them. Oh yeah. A certain phone company plays music when you call their number, and the default is Spring from Vivaldi. I hate it. I love the song Hate How Thin and Tinny It Sounds. Oh yeah. Oh, I hate when that happens too. Right? Here is what's really interesting about grunge. This is what is interesting about grunge. So, if we sort of think about metal as giving you kind of an oppressive system, like a heavy oppressive system, which can be representative of like, because also, side note, it's important to note that most metal, right, the roots of metal are industrial towns, like deindustrializing cities. So it's metal's like a working class genre, with people who are basically losing like jobs, or like, you know, coming out of the 70s, people are losing jobs. There's deindustrialization. A lot of these early metal bands are coming out of places like Manchester. Like it's not a great place, is what I'm trying to tell you. It's like it's not a great place. You know, like it's not good. But the point is, right, that they are in this kind of right. So it's a working class genre. It's working class. It's 70s, but it's fundamentally about transcendence. It's about transcending out of right, this sort of oppressive structure that you're in. So there is a kind of a hope to metal, in that
name game.
There is a means to transcend the oppression. Also, okay, all right, here we go. Banana Fana Foe has just subscribed to the Foxhole, and I'm going to do the name game for Banana Fana Foe, and I don't know how it's going to happen, but we're going to do it. Beetlewind says, it's like how Evil Empire is probably a better album than Rage Against the Machine, but the way it was mixed in the studio just makes it sound super weird and wicky. Yeah. Okay, here we go. The name game. Come on, everybody. I said, now let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. The first letter of the name, I treat it like it wasn't there. And then a B or an F, or an M will appear. And then I say bo at a B, then I say the name, then Banana Fana and Foe. Then I say the name again with an F, very plain. Then a fee, fi, and a mo. And then I say the name again with an M this time, and there isn't any name that I can't rhyme. But if the first two letters are ever the same, I drop them both and say the name. Like Bob, Bob drop the B's, Bo, Ob, or Fred, Fred drop the F's, fo, red, or Mary, Mary drop the M's, mo, airy. That's the only rule that is contrary. Banana, fana, fo. Banana, fana, fo, banana, fo, bo, anana, fo. Wait. Bob, Bob, Bo, Bob, banana, fana, fo, fob, fee, fi, mo, mob. Bob. Okay. Banana, fana, fo, bo, banana, fana, fo, bo, anna, fana, fo, banana, fana, fo, fana, nana, fana. Wait. I got this. Hold on. I got this. I think I just need to see it. I need to see it in my mind. Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. Banana, fana, fo. Banana, fana, fo. Bob, Bob, Bo, Bob, banana, fana, fo, fob, fee, fi, mo, mob. Bob. Banana, fana, fo, bo, anna, fana, fo. Banana, fana, fo, fana, fo. Fee, fi, mo, ma, fana. Nope. Ma, fana, fo. No. Banana, fana, fo. Okay, wait. Banana, fana, fo, bo, nana, fana, fo. Banana. Wait. I got this. I got it. No, I got it. Okay, wait. I got this. Bob, bo, banana, fana, fo, fob, fee, fi, mo, mob. Bob. Banana, fana, fo, bo, anana, fana, fo, banana, fana, fo, banana, fana, fo, nana, fana, fo, fee, fi, mo, banana, fana, fo. Banana, banana, fo. Wait, I think, banana, fo. Okay, banana, fo. Okay, wait, I got it. Banana, fo, that's the rhythm. Banana, but banana, fo, bo, anana, fo, banana, fo, banana, fo, fee, fi, mo, banana, fo, banana, fo, banana, bob, bo, banana, banana,
Somebody's watching me.
Ooh, I always feel that somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel that somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? Thank you for that follow. So here's the thing. It's the rhythm, right? So I think if I get the rhythm of banana, fana, fo correct, and it will be different from the other banana, fana, fo. So it's banana, fana, fo. Banana, fana, fo is the name. Banana, fana, fo is the thing. So then it should go banana, fana, fo, bo, anana, fana, fo, banana, fana, fo, fana, fo, fee, fi, mo, banana, fana, fo, banana, fana, fo. That's it right there. That's it. It's the rhythm, right? Because for the name, it's got to be banana, fana, fo, because that's the rhythm of the name part. And then for the regular banana, fana, fo, it's banana, fana, fo, but not banana, fana, fo. So it's banana, fana, fo, right? So it's banana, fana, fo, bo, anana, fana, fo, banana, fana, fo, fana, banana, fo, fee, fi, mo, banana, fo, banana, fo. That's it. It's the rhythm of the night. Oh yeah. Also, PH, I honor that. Oh hey, guess what? I'm over encumbered. Oh, these look like bad guys. Oh hey, why don't I use my special awesome, this is not even gonna do anything though. Oh hey, it did. Oh, excuse me. So I need to tell you about grunge though, because I have to finish the music theory for you because this is super interesting. You're not shocked? I know you're not shocked. Are you shooting someone right now? Are you in a fight with someone? Are you, Ellie? Are you okay? Okay, just, Ellie, why were you by yourself over there? Like, you don't need to do this by yourself. We're friends. My goodness. Come back up here and don't get killed. Come on now. Because I'm talking about grunge and music theory. I don't need you to run around getting murdered. You know? Okay, so taken into account, right, the ways in which metal structurally gives you like an oppressive base that you then transcend out of, usually either through your guitar solo or your vocals. What's interesting about grunge in the 90s, so here's interesting, right? So, you know, metal is like really huge in the 80s. It's like the big deal. And then metal basically stops being a big deal once we hit the 90s. You could say, thank you for posting those museums. You could say that grunge killed metal, but of course metal still exists. It's just no longer in the top 40 in the way that it used to be, right? Blah, 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 blah. But, so here's the thing that I think you will find very interesting. If people say, well, what's the difference between metal and grunge? They might say, oh, well, you know, grunge, they wear flannel. The newness of metal wore off. But see, Barontor, what I would argue, Video Killed the Radio Star, is that it wasn't the newness of metal that killed it off in the end. It was the hopefulness of metal that killed it off in the end. And what I mean by that is, to be more specific, if the way that metal functions is that it gives you an oppressive structure that you can then fight against, and that you can win against through this transcendence, the thing about grunge is that grunge is basically the oppressiveness of metal, but without the transcendence. So whereas in metal, you can get out of the crap, you can make it out through the force of your, you know, that transcendent virtuosic. And that's the thing too, that like metal's about virtuosity, right? The way that you get out of the crap in metal is through virtuosity. It's through that virtuosic guitar playing. It's through the virtuosic singing of, you know, Rob Halford or whoever you got, right? And the thing about metal is also an angry genre, but it's a genre where you are able to make it out. But in grunge, you can't. So grunge gives you all of that oppressive superstructure, but none of the transcendence, none of the virtuosity, that those metal guitar players practice 10 hours a day to get that, to be able to do that, right? And what they're doing is breaking you out of the crap. You get to be the guitar hero, right? You're a guitar hero. You get to be a hero, or you're a hero vocalist, right? You're able to get out. And then you can think about these moments where like, and also the drummers, like you also get virtuosic drumming moments, virtuosic, not as much with the bass, but sometimes it happens, where that virtuosity, it's about the ways in which the individual, right? That individual musician is able to break out of the oppressive structure through just being really, 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 really good. And through a lot of power, noise, loud, go, break out. And that just doesn't happen in grunge. So grunge gives you all of the oppressiveness, but none of the transcendence. And that is, yeah, in metal music, you are a guitar hero. Yeah. They've been the kids that got wasted behind the sport hall. Now I'm so curious if you heard, I have heard baby metal. Yes, I have. So summarize grunge in one German word, Hauptschule. I feel like baby metal is famous, right? My husband introduced me to baby metal. We were both glad to find the lyrics translated as innocently as we hoped they would. Yeah, and what I think is really fascinating is that I don't think that grunge overtook metal because metal's newness wore off. I think grunge overtook metal because, well, basically, there was a hopelessness that happens in the 90s, that wherein the kind of transcendence doesn't seem like it's going to work anymore, right? When you think about a lot of grunge is super, like, it's raging, but it goes nowhere. Like, it often just doesn't go anywhere. And so I think it really reflected a moment of the idea that that kind of the kind of transcendence that you would get in metal was no longer believable to like a lot of people, and so they, like, the move shifted from metal, but not just metal, also, like, there was also alternative. Before grunge, there was a lot of like synth alternative that was doing something else as well, and those things were no longer as relevant in this new moment, and people instead went to a kind of a very ragey but not escapey place. Super interesting though. Rage that goes nowhere. I learned a bit about myself. The futility of AIDS created a decade of futility. Yes, Jared, that's exactly right. And I think that that's like the futility of the AIDS crisis. And then it's also, and then once you have the Clinton administration, it's really hard to rage. It's hard to rage against, like, a lot of the ragers are sort of left-wing people, and when you have a left-wing president, the rage gets diffused. It's much easier to rage when you have a right-wing president, like, because they get to be like a symbol, and so you can make music that's very pointed and directed in those ways. And when you have left-wing presidents, your left-wing ragers have a hard time focusing the rage, and so they end up raging in a way that gets really diffused. And so there's something really interesting about that. And then we can think about like what happens later with the rise of nu metal. What is that doing? And of course, when you look at metal post its mainstream popularity, metal starts doing different things, and that's really interesting. That how does metal adapt to the people who are now identifying with metal and needing metal as a thing? And that becomes interesting. Verum asks, I do wonder what sort of music will come out of what is currently going on. Me too. I'm very interested. Left-wing president, by certain definitions of left-wing, yes. By certain definitions, yes. Also, economically, the 90s were pretty decent, and so like it's very like it's hard. It's easier when you can say like God Save the Queen and like, you know what I mean. Like it's easier when you have easier like figures. And sure, I totally read that one. I totally read it. Does that mean when there's no need to rage because they got what they wanted then? No. They didn't get what they wanted. That's the thing. They raged, but the rage didn't have transcendence. It became a kind of a it's like unfocused. It's less focused rage without any sort of means out, right? Because you can imagine like, oh, we could overthrow, you know, this president and it'll be okay, but now we got this new president. We overthrew the last president, and like it's still not great. So now what are we gonna do, right? So like there's like a really diffused sort of rage. Yeah. I'm gonna eat a ham sandwich. But now I want a ham sandwich. No, they didn't get it. Yep. But they no longer have the focus that it did when it was. Yeah, that's right. So that's the thing. Transcendent rage should be abandoned. It should be, right? So they didn't get it, and that's why they were still raging. But the raging then becomes this kind of nihilistic, disappointed rage. And that's really what grunge was about. Do you know what I mean? It was like this real. And so grunge is so different from metal, although they're not. Do you know what I mean? Like, and at that, I think, and also they are also not that different from alternative, but also not. Like, it's really interesting. Because before you could be angry and say it's because the people in charge are the wrong politicians. Once they're replaced, things will get better, and then they don't, right? And then they don't. The 90s was kind of an age that said, even the ideal world, we still can't win. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Mm-hmm. Grunge pretty much ended around 9/11. I feel like it ended a little bit earlier, actually. I feel like grunge ended a little bit earlier, Barontor. A little bit earlier. Not a whole lot earlier, but just like, I think it started morphing by the time we started getting to the late 90s. And grunge was the response to things changing, to the hope suddenly rising, then realizing nothing got solved, right? And so even though I talk about metal being an angry genre, which I think it is also a hopeful genre and a transcendent genre, right? Which is, because there are a lot of angry genres. Like punk is an angry genre, but it's not angry in the same way that metal is angry. Grunge is an angry genre, but it's not angry in the same way that metal is. Like, these are all different kinds. And in some ways, actually, new wave is an angry genre, but that's angry in a totally different way as well. So like, there are these really different ways to express that moment that you're in. And grunge is so American. Germany was reinventing techno. Yes, it was. Well, not techno, Eurodisco. It's reinventing Eurodisco. I'm very interested to talk to you some about clarifying exactly what you mean by metal being an angry genre. What I mean by that is that it's it's about power. It's about aggression, and that aggression structurally comes through distortion. Today distortion is pretty easy, right? Like you just plug in a distortion pedal, but the only way you got distortion in the past was by overdriving your amps or your vocal cords, right? So the only way to get distortion is by being really, really loud enough to actually damage the amp itself. And so that is a particular level of aggression that is sort of core to what makes hard rock, heavy metal heavy. What makes it heavy is now today it's a little bit different because you can have quiet distortion now, and you can have like plugins, and so I don't think people read distortion exactly the same way now as they did a couple of decades ago, because a couple of decades ago you just could not get distortion without being really, really loud and aggressive, and that distortion was the sound of damage, right? Like distortion was damaging your amp, like damaging the cone of your amp. And so distortion itself is this and also feedback is also one of these things that ends up becoming right, like a sound of too loud, breaking. So like just musically, like physically, like the physicality of what hard rock into heavy metal doing is very, very aggressive. And otherwise you couldn't actually get the sounds at all. And then also actually about like, I mean, so like huge stacks, and that is a particular kind
Somebody's watching me.
Ooh, I always feel that somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel that somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? Thank you for the follow. And especially 70s metal into the early 80s, the people who were making that music were angry people because they were living in industrialized towns where all the jobs were being lost. There was a lot of unemployment. It was crappy. Like it was really, really terrible. And so a lot of early metal before it got really, really mainstream was pretty, it was protest music. Do you know what I mean? Like it's protest music. Do you know, like that's what I want to say. Like go fix the thing. Yes. Yeah. So like, and I think that it's important to think, and then you smash your guitar, right? At the end of right. So like there's, yeah, right. So like, and like you're smashing your guitar, you're smashing things. It is very, very, and like you can also think about like the Who, some of these sort of rock bands, right? These sort of blues rock bands out of which metal is going to come. Right. So it is angry protest music. Now I will say that this causes tension. And often this was, so if you want to think about, yes, often with a hopefulness. Yes. Right. So like it's that anger is going to push you towards something. Drums are very involved rather than keeping a beat too. Yes. And they're often involved to sort of try to sometimes keeping the oppressive structure and then sort of breaking out of it. It's actually impressive hearing how reedy Hetfield's voice was in early Metallica albums and how much deeper it got. Oh yeah. And I think what's really interesting is that, and we can think about this, what happens in the 80s is that, and this is like, I'm going to say this, don't get mad. And when I say this, it's going to sound very judgy, but I don't really mean it as judgy, right? it's going to sound judgy, but I don't mean it that way. It's only going to sound judgy if you have certain values, right? If you have certain values, then what I'm going to say is going to sound judgy, but I don't mean this in a value judgment way, just as like, this is what happened. So if you think about early metal, right? So let's say 70s into the early 80s, it is this, let's say, angry protest music that's about power, distortion, aggression, loudness. It's all of this stuff. It is alternative music. It's alternative music. Because you have so much miles that I verge on, but never had the chance to really get into. Oh, I mean, I love thinking about this stuff, right? So judgy, right? So, but like, it's basically non-mainstream music, right? Like, metal was not really mainstream in this time period. And the people that were listening to it were outsiders in the early, right, in this early time period. Into like the early mid 80s, probably, I would say. It's sort of like punk that way, like sort of punk and metal, new wave. These are sort of alternative outsider musics. And what ends up happening, and this is really interesting, is that also hip hop. Hip hop is another one of these outsider musics as well. We hit the mid 80s, and what ends up happening is that, how do I frame this? Okay, don't be judgy about it. Middle class suburban teens get really interested in the mid 80s in outsider music. And so they hit metal a little bit before they hit hip hop. There's like a little bit of a brief flash of hip hop in the mid 80s, but hip hop will get really big in the 90s in terms of middle class appropriation of the outsider genre. But metal, and then like a year or two later, hip hop gets appropriated by middle class suburban teens. And then it becomes massively popular. I mean, it's true, but here's the thing I want to say. What I don't want, I mean, I'm not wrong, but here's the thing. I don't want you then to, but what I'm not saying is that any of the later metal, I'm not saying that later metal is not valid or useful or interesting. Like, I'm not saying that mid to late 80s metal is bad, right? I'm not saying that at all. That is not what I'm saying. I don't want you to think I'm saying that. I'm just saying that there was a shift, right? There was a shift from Electric Eye and Iron Man, right? And these songs that are really, really thematizing oppression in really heavy ways, where you only make it through, like, it's like super oppressive, but you make it through a lot of struggle, right? You make it through, and the struggle comes from like the difficulty of the solos, right? Would you think that shift was part of the origin of glam metal? Yes. I have a question. Is the big hair bands in the mid 80s and late 90s a sexualized version of heavy metal? Is it something else? I mean, it is heavy metal. It's heavy metal without a doubt. Now, metal people will be like, that's not heavy metal, but it was. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was all part of that scene. But it's about this shift that happens, right? So what ends up happening is that there's this huge demographic shift that happens with metal as it hits the mainstream. All of a sudden, metal's in the top 20. Metal was not top 40 music, but now it is. And with that top 40 shift, that means more people are listening to metal, and different people are listening to metal. So it's not just angry, working class, deindustrialized urban folks. It's now suburban teens, women, people who are not having the exact same struggles as some of the people who were part of that first generation of metal. And so the music is going to shift again, right? It's going to be a little bit different. And then you start getting glam metal, which in its own way is actually connected back to sort of glam rock of the 70s. So it actually does have antecedents, but it's a little bit different. Glam metal is doing slightly different things than glam rock of the 70s, because glam metal is actually way more sexist than the earlier metal in its own way. It's because it's weirdly complicated. I have a big question. I asked because there was a shift out in the boonies where, from like Aussie to things opposed. Oh yeah, totally. And that shift is part of this shift. That shift is totally what happened. It's that part of that shift to getting this larger audience. And if you want to think about some of the symbolic moments of this shift, I think that you'd want to think about, there are two things that I think about, like really big like you can think about Poison and Motley Crue and all that, but I want to go like one step before that. And I would say if you want to think about like seeing this shift happen and the struggles and the anger and the drama around this shift is Van Halen. Van Halen, and then I think the follow-up would be Bon Jovi. But Van Halen, because Van Halen, like, I mean, Eddie Van Halen is legit. Like, if you heard Eruption, Eddie Van Halen is a guitar hero. Right? Like, he is a guitar hero. Like, legit, and they had all the cred, right? They had all the cred. But they started getting popular with a different set of audiences, and all of a sudden they start bringing in synthesizers, and that's big taboo. Like, metalheads are like, you can't have a synthesizer. They've relaxed now, but back then they lost their minds. It was like when Dylan went electric. Dylan brought an electric guitar to the folk concert, and everybody lost their minds. We're like, this is a betrayal. And Helen brings in a synthesizer. They're like, oh my god, this is a betrayal. And David Lee Roth was not the aesthetic. Do you know what I mean? Like he was bringing in more women into the audience, younger people. Some of them were like 14 or 15, and from the suburbs. And yeah, I'm streaming until 3:30. Yeah, Rissa. And so there was tension. And I will tell you, at the time, people were very, very angry. There was a lot of yelling about Van Halen. Actually, it was very intense. I remember it. I remember people being like, oh, Van Halen are sellouts, Van Halen are the worst, how dare they? And like, there was all, but people were like, but Eddie Van Halen can really play, he invented tapping. Like, there was all of this like struggle about Van Halen and what Van Halen meant to who metal audiences would be. And it was a bitter struggle. PH is like, pissing off my parents by listening to New Kids on the Block did not work out as I intended. Fun fact, it's a true story. I totally get that. Balric says, see, in my lifetime, I kind of feel like I saw that kind of shift happen around the early 2000s, though I sort of don't know entirely what to call the genres I would mention. No, there were shifts, and I'm actually very interested in basically the post 9/11 shifts, because there are these post 9/11 shifts that we could think about, like what is happening there. I remember New Kids coming in, it was being more of a city thing than out in our rural areas. Yeah. That void started being filled by stadium country stars. So interesting. Ice Bunny says, yeah, because kids ever tend to need something they can piss off mom and dad with, and what to do middle-class parents who want to pretend to be so much more posh than the working class. Then the offspring listen to music from a class they may have worked themselves off. Yeah, so I mean, oftentimes what happens is that suburban teens, when they want to upset their parents, they appropriate working class genres, right? That's just kind of how that process goes. But they have a lot of buying power, right? And when that large mass, because top 40 is basically middle class music, right? So when that large mass with their buying power sort of moves in, it has an impact on the music itself and on also the scene. So where was that weren't very metal to more light rock and same country because they didn't identify with hip hop and boy bands. Oh yeah. And Bon Jovi, and I did an analysis of Living on a Prayer, but Bon Jovi for me is really symbolic of a shift to something different in metal, because Living on a Prayer kind of gives you the oppression, but then you get out of the oppression through this transcendence. But the transcendence is not struggle, it's basically love, right? So Living on a Prayer is, how do I put this? Bourgeois propaganda. And I say that, again, not in a hyper-judgy way, but in a noting it way. So, Balrog's not from the US myself, but I grew up going to an American school and I have very vivid experiences. But I also want to say a lot of Europe actually also went through a number of these sort of shifts as well. It's not like the United States got conservative in the 80s. Well, sure, but so did also like Europe as well. Like, I mean, there were a lot of conservative PMs voted in. So there's a lot of these zeitgeists that end up being shared. Sometimes there are differences, but a lot of times there are a lot of parallels. Yeah. So it was interesting that so if you think about, okay, so politically, one of the things that the European bourgeois did post the end of serfdom, the end of feudalism, post-Enlightenment, all that stuff, right? When we are sort of getting rid of feudalism and serfdom, we still have class divisions, and they're still really, really bad. And so how do you convince the working classes, the poor, that it's okay and they should not be running around having revolutions? How do we, like, because we got rid of our feudalism, so how do we convince them? Ah, you say but I grew up in India. Oh, that's interesting. I'd be interesting to know what was happening in India at that moment. Like, that's interesting. I would be really interested to know, because I know that there were some shifts. Like when I watch like Bollywood films from the 80s, they're very, very different from Bollywood films now. I was watching a bunch of Bollywood films from like the 80s and early 90s maybe, and there's a lot of discussion about British colonialism in them in ways that I don't see as much now. So that's really interesting. A lot of like historical Bollywood films. So anyway, shifts, like cultural shifts, very interesting. So what happens is that when you get out of feudalism, you still have all this, and you start moving into this more capitalism versus feudalism, and that is also really oppressive. But how do you convince the working classes not to rebel? Right? Hey, Kira, how are you? Like, how do you do that? And one of the things that the bourgeois did was emphasize romance, right? So the idea of romantic love and romantic marriage is, there were like some kind of medieval like songs and whatnot, but really that whole kind of like romantic love thing is very, very contemporary. It's very modern. And it's part of a kind of a propaganda that, like, the sort of the kind of modern notion of marriage that we have is like for romance and for love and blah, 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 blah. It was part of bourgeois propaganda to make us all equal in love. Like, we may not all have millions of dollars, but we all have love. And we all like, marriage love becomes a means within this propaganda to quell dissent, basically. So, Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi, what it does is it takes the very critical, often governmentally critical metal of the 70s and early 80s, wherein you make it through destruction or struggle. You're Iron Man, you destroy everyone and all this stuff, right? And it basically tells you that you can solve all of your economic problems through love, right? So in some ways, Living on a Prayer is like the most bourgeois middle class version of a metal song I can think of. Like, that's just like, that is, and that album was massive. It was a massive album. Living on a Prayer was a massive hit, Dead or Alive. And so there are ways in which it makes sense to me that that song was one of the big, huge breakthrough songs. That was one of the ones that was a massive smash hit, because of course it was. Because ideologically, that song is a perfect song for that moment, right? For that particular shift. Like, it's like, that's like, politically, it's such an interesting song. Very interesting. Very interesting. Ready for your knowledge drops? Welcome in. Yeah, we're discussing heavy metal. I love the way the integrate traditions. Oh yeah. Our next rebellion will happen because we don't get bread entertainment in the qualities we want. And then what will it look like? You should check out Wakagi Band as well if you're curious. There's similar things. I think I know Wakagi Band. They're very good, Balrog. I know only one of their tunes, but I like it. They use the shamisen, right? It's like kind of quasi metal shamisen. They're really good. I quite like them, and I always keep forgetting their name. But I like Wakagi Band quite a lot. They're very, very good. I'm a fan. I agree with what you're saying here, Trooper. The whole "we don't have a lot, but love is all we need" is it's a sentiment you only really find said by people who have enough that they don't have to worry. Yes, I would do anything love, but I won't do that. Yes, and yeah. Link them in Discord. They're really great. And so that's a thing. Now, I will say that that glam metal, like the hair bands, like Motley Crue, Poison, Rat, all of them, they're a little bit more complicated because they're not exactly like Bon Jovi, even though people will sort of put them in the same category, because hair metal, if you really want my take on hair metal, and it's also not, I mean, like you can hear it in, just, they talk about this a little bit in Running with the Devil as well, Walser does. Glam metal is about anxiety. Like, there is so much anxiety in glam metal. It is insane. Like, when I think about glam metal, I think about, like, there is such masculinity, anxiety in glam metal. I really don't know what to say. Twisted Sister is different. Twisted Sister is not the same. Twisted Sister, like, does all the makeup and the big hair, but they're not doing the same thing as Poison and Warrant and Motley Crue and all of them. Those bands, which were many of them were coming out of the LA scene. Yeah, Twisted Sister is almost punk metal. Yeah, basically, Twisted Sister is not the same as, they're like doing different things. Like, you might, on the surface, they might look the same, but they really are not doing the same things at all. They're much more punk metal. Yeah. Well, I'm prepping my head to get cut from my body. Now I have Living on a Prayer stuck in my head. Hey, you're welcome, Twitch. Balrog says, I also can't talk about glam metal without starting to think about Visual K and X-Japan, but to hold their culture and hold their conversation. No, we're not going to take it. No, we ain't going to. See, and that's interesting, right? When you look at, this is really interesting. This is what I'm trying to say. We're not going to take it is about resistance, right? It's kind of punky that way. But a lot of glam metal is not about that. A lot of glam metal is about other things, and we can talk about that. But you know, Balrog, what's interesting is that there are also these ways in which there are these transnational currents that happen. I think about jazz in the 20s. There was like Japanese punk in the 70s. So like sometimes these things make it across in interesting ways, and sometimes they are being used in similar ways and sometimes slightly different ways, and that's really interesting. Yeah, Chris is like, there's a big difference between We're Not Gonna Take It and Talk Dirty to Me. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. And Beetlewind says, there's a line in 1984 about the party selling pornography books to the proles and making them think it was rebellious and diverse, and I've always felt that hair metal bands were similar. Yeah, I think hair metal bands always seem to me about anxiety around masculinity. And what I mean by that is, unlike Metallica, unlike Judas Priest, unlike Twisted Sister, metal bands are primarily about having sex with women a lot and objectifying. It's like, now, are they wearing makeup? They are, but that wearing makeup is some kind of a weird, like, we're so manly we can wear makeup. And we're going to then, like, Girls, Girls, Girls by Motley Crue is like, the video's in a strip club with actual strippers, and it's all about all the strip clubs they go to. And like, Smoke in the Boys Room, Hot for Teacher, She's My Cherry Pie. I mean, all of these songs are just like so aggressively like, I have sex with women. I have sex with women so much. I swear, it's all the time. Just like sex with women. And you're like, wow, what's going on with you right now? Like, maybe you need to relax. And there's just like, there's a real like, a hypersexuality that starts feeling very yeah, please, like it's and like the partying, 90% of AC/DC songs are just euphemism for banging. Yeah. And it's so aggressive. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so aggressive. It's not just like a lot of the rock songs are just like, I'm having sex. Like Led Zeppelin has a lot of banging songs too. But the glam metal is very weirdly nihilistic, because it's about a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, a lot of sex, a lot of and this is why I actually think that those glam metal bands are interesting, right? I think they're very interesting because they are not the glam metal bands are not romantic in a bougie way, in the way that Bon Jovi did. Like, Living on a Prayer is a real bougie middle class song that also feels rebellious, but isn't, right? Like, it feels rebellious, but it's not. And again, I'm not angry at Bon Jovi. I don't hate them. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that this is like how that works. But like Motley Crue is not that. Motley Crue is like, I'm gonna do a lot of drugs until I die. And while I'm doing it, I'm gonna have a lot of sex, and I'm clearly freaked out. Like there's a, like, I mean, I think we should note, right, that Living on a Prayer is about a normative couple, you know, Tommy and Gina. They're together, they love each other, they're probably married, I don't know, right? Like it's a very normative, like they don't actually challenge the status quo. Tommy and Gina and Living on a Prayer, like not at all. But like all those glam metal bands, you're like, ooh, oh, you know what I mean? Like there is something very disturbing about their excess. And the glam metal bands are so excessive in this way that is full of anxiety and nihilism that I actually do find them quite challenging. Like I do think that they are challenging, even though they may not be the same as some of these other bands, and they're challenging in a different way, but I do think that they're challenging in a way that is very intriguing. And they're not that, like, your parents don't want you to date Tommy Lee. Do you know what I mean? Like they really don't. They might be happy for you to date John Bon Jovi. He seems, you know, I mean, his hair's long, but he seems okay. They don't want you to date Tommy Lee, you know? That's all I'm gonna say about that one. Aerosmith takes a left turn at Albuquerque with Janie's Gunna Gun, yeah. Glam rock is almost about burning out fast rather than lasting long, yes. Do it in the now, sort of a remnant of the 80s in a way that makes it trashy on purpose, yes. And that I think is actually challenging. I think it's interesting. Balrog says, I actually did pop off in a little bit if I want to have some attention for the charity meat grinder over Encounter. And by the way, we're gonna do a we're gonna end like maybe in 20 minutes, half hour, and we're gonna raid Encounter roleplay, by the way. But I've seriously appreciated this, and I look forward to more conversation. Oh, please come over. All you gotta do is get me started, and then we'll talk about stuff. Like, no question. At some point, I want to talk to you about the German group Die Toten Hosen. Oh yeah, Die Ärzte, Die Toten Hosen, Fantastischen Vier. There's like a bunch of really cool, interesting German rock to talk about as well. So interesting. Anino's like, I'll call them Bon Bon. I have to give Bon Jovi credit for his community work. Oh yeah. Like I'm not, and again, I am not insulting John Bon Jovi. Like when I say these things, for me, there is no judgment at all. I'm just noting how these different groups end up functioning for their audiences, because that's what I do for a living, but that's what I think is so interesting. Like whether or not you like Bon Jovi or not, whether or not you like Warrant or not, Warrant's interesting. Queen is interesting. Why all of a sudden, why did we go into boy bands and girl groups? Boy bands and pop princesses at the end of the 90s. Why did we do that? Why did we have that massive stadium country dominate the beginning of the 90s? Why did we do that? Why did we have nu metal? What is emo about? Why, like, what was that, like, why did we have nu metal? Why at the moment, you know, what happened with gangster rap? Why was that a thing? Why do we not really have it anymore? Why are these things that why is it, for example, that Eurodance was huge in Europe, but didn't make it over to the United States? Why is that? Country music is popular in Japan, but Japanese country groups, what are they doing when they listen to, when Japanese groups make country music? What are they doing? Because clearly country music in Japan does not mean what it means in the United States, right? So why is there a subculture in Japan that loves country music? What does it do for them? What does it mean for them? Why is that? Why is Scandinavian death metal different? What happened between the transition from happy hardcore and stadium rave to that kind of dark stuff that started happening when all of a sudden we start talking about people overdosing a lot, and like your hardcore, like your techno starts getting really, really little too fast and a little bit weird, right? Like, why do these things happen in these moments, in these places? And what can that tell us about that moment? Like, that is the thing that I love. Like, why do we want those things? I love that. I love that. All the love for Bon Jovi, just stating facts. Like, that's it. Vesterland, yes. Don't date Dummy Lee, kids, says Peach. Don't do it. Balric says Bon Jovi is the acceptable sweetener rather than the saturated rock sugar. Yeah. Some of this is interesting because I saw a lot of drugs arriving to rural areas in a big way in conjunction with some specific, right? And Barentor, that becomes really interesting too, right? And also, drug culture and its relationship to music is very interesting. Yeah, and there is a difference. And the thing is, there's a difference between the music and the man, and there's also a difference between the reception of the music and what the musicians are doing, right? Like, you can receive the music in a way that's different from the way that it is being made. For example, Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen was meant to be a critique of the United States, but that is not how people received it. People received it as a big pro-patriotic song. They're like, yeah, Born in the USA. And then like Ronald Reagan wanted to use it as like his theme for his campaign rallies, right? Because people were receiving it as a hyper-patriotic song, which was not what Bruce Springsteen meant to do with that song. Now, people would say, oh, well, you know, that's because the listeners are stupid. And I was like, no, it's because Bruce Springsteen wrote that song wrong. He wrote the song wrong. So if he'd written it differently, people would have gotten that it was not a patriotic song, but the way he wrote it, that was his mistake. That was not the audience being dumb. That was him writing that incorrectly for what he wanted, right? I like thinking about all the New Jersey guys coming out around the same time and how they're so different. Billy Joel, Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen. Now, Verum, I feel like there's a paper there. And that's like, I feel like there's a paper about those three guys. And what I would do if I were going to write that paper, I really want to do a lot of research about what was happening in New Jersey specifically in that time. I would probably want to do research on like what kind of venues they would have been playing at, and who they would have, like who their audience would have been at that time. Like, I think to really understand Billy Joel, Bon Jovi, and Bruce Springsteen, you really would need to really dig into New Jersey. You know what I mean? Like, and really get into like a really good history of New Jersey, and that would be interesting. Yes. Crit Twitch is like, country music is popular in Japan. Oh, there's a whole scene. There's a whole country music scene in Japan. It's very interesting. I feel like there's an entire thesis on Gig Trip. Oh, there is. There's a lot of writing. In Japan, they take elements from Western culture and apply Japanese elements to it. When I lived in Japan and listened to Japanese hip hop, it was very different than American hip hop, right? Because it's doing something different. Like it means something different. It has a different function, because of course it does, right? It's not a mistake. It's just that it's doing something different, so it has to be a little bit different. Yeah. Greyfeather's like, we can't talk about American-based media influence Japan without talking about the occupation. Yes. That's the next thing, right? Becomes really important. Greyfeather talking about the occupation becomes really, really important, because what the consumption of American music means during occupation is going to be different, right? That all of a sudden it's going to take on a different meaning. And for example, jazz was hugely popular in Japan in the 1920s. There was no occupation. And what it meant was very different than what American music's popularity in Japan in the 50s meant. Do you know what I mean? It's like these things are really different things, and we have to think about the ways in which the occupation involves this. Also, Japanese, whether or not are we talking about like which generation of people are we talking about? Are we talking about rebellion or not rebellion? Like what is, and if you're rebelling, who are you rebelling against, and what are you rebelling against? And is the America the actual America or a symbolic America? Like there are a lot of really interesting questions there. How much? Oh, that paper. There's a lot. Oh, that's a good point. We learned in our concept design classes that art is a language. If your audience isn't grasping what you're trying to explain your art, the fault lies in the artist normally. Country music is also really popular in Norway, and then there are people who are there. It's also popular in parts of Germany. Like there's a lot of in Bavaria. There was like country music that was popular in Bavaria, which becomes. I mean, it's really tricky, right? It's really tricky to think about what's going on, right? But you can do it in an anti-American way. To the point, I've had conversations with people here who claim that it originated from Norwegian immigrants. Yeah. Okay, look, I have to tell you, this is really important. It's an important thing. I have to tell you this. It's important. So, it's about jazz. This 1920s and 30s jazz is something that one of the things that I study, and this is a thing that's really important to me to say, because I think there's a thing that's it's part of this is one of my theses. So jazz goes all around the globe. Right, a little bit after 1918, but really after 1924. It's all over the globe. In every major port city, there's this huge jazz scene and a jazz community. Now, Tokyo, Shanghai, Accra, Manila, Berlin, Paris, London, Rome, Barcelona, like Havana, Sao Paulo, like jazz is global and everywhere in the 1930s. You play jazz band? Oh, that's so cool, but you didn't like the other people in it. So here's the thing that I want to say, and this is really important. There are people who will critique the spread of jazz, and they will say that what it was American cultural imperialism, right? Austria, Vienna. So people will say, oh, this is American cultural imperialism, right? America is spreading its cultural imperialism around the world. And there are a lot of people who think of themselves as very progressive that will make this argument that like, oh, this is the example of like America, like invading other places. However, what I need to say is that I do not think that's a good read. That is like the read that people think is the progressive read. Like if you're progressive, what you're going to say is that the US is like imposing its music on other people and destroying like their indigenous stuff, and isn't it so sad that like we are forcing these people in other countries to listen to our music through our evil imperialism. And Iceman is like, but didn't every country make jazz their unique thing? Yes. And that's really one of the important things, is that it's not cultural imperialism the way that you might think. It's not that the United States, who was not that important in 1920, by the way, was somehow forcing the world to take on its American jazz. That's not what happened. What happened was that there was a cosmopolitan, transnational youth rebellion that was coming out of basically a lot of reactions to World War I and various other sort of conservatisms. And the young people in a kind of a global cosmopolitan context used jazz in order to rebel against the culture that they were part of, their parents. And yes, they talked about Americanism, right? They often used, yes, and Germany, you had the Roaring Twenties. Yeah, I think they called the Golden 20s, right? Germany had the Golden 20s. Japan had it. Like all these places had it. And the thing is that it wasn't all the country. It was usually youth, young people, and they were, and oftentimes they would discuss Americanism. But they used Americanism very specifically for a specific reason, and that was they were not really talking about the United States, not really, not the actual United States. They were talking about a fantasy of the United States, but the purpose of it really had nothing to do with the United States. What it was about resisting nationalism. Like this particular movement, there's like a kind of a micro generation of that moment that happened also in Mumbai. Like there are a bunch of places that all sort of basically did this. And they took the idea of jazz and the idea of Americanism as a means to resist nationalism, right? Because we were coming out of like very nationalist places and kind of patriarchal moments. It was like a very, like there was like a lot of stuff going on in the globe. And the use of Americanism and jazz was used to resist nationalism. And it was used to resist, a lot of women were using it to justify agitating for equal rights and leaving. There were these women in Mumbai and in Tokyo and in Moscow who cut their hair, started smoking, wearing makeup, and doing what they wanted to do. Like it was like a real push for sexual liberation, gender liberation, liberation from nationalism. And they used jazz to do this. And so it wasn't that the United States imposed its cultural imperialism on other people, because it wasn't really about the United States. It was only symbolically about the United States, and the jazz they made was their own. Like, did they listen to American jazz records? Sure, but they almost all made their own jazz albums as well. Betty Inada was this sort of like Japanese jazz singer. Like every country had their own local bands that made their own kind of jazz out of their own context that was about rebelling against conservatism, and by that I mean like social conservatism, rebelling against the older structures. It was about really what jazz was symbolic of newness. And the United States, what the United States did was it was symbolic of new. Like the United States was basically like was being used as a stand-in for newness, and that's what it was doing. And so to read people in other countries taking up jazz as their own, as American cultural imperialism, I find is very disrespectful to the things that those people in those countries were doing, because they were not dupes and stupid and like just like, oh no, we are somehow powerless against, because that's not even how it worked, right? Like it was very deliberately something that they were doing themselves for their own reasons, and like I feel like we need to honor that. And yes, and I also think that we can think about hip hop in an interesting way. Is that hip hop is now global, and when people do hip hop, they're often doing their own hip hop for their own reasons. And so it's, again, hip hop is now global, but it's not everyone's listening to Kanye. They're listening to their own bands. Do you know what I mean? Like they're making their own hip hop. Stromae in Belgium, Tic-Tac-Toe in Germany, all the grime in the UK. Like people are making their own hip hop for their own reasons to do their own political work. And I think it's important to not ignore the agency of the people in those places. That's my rant. There you go. I love the community harmonists too. Great for this is it's so important not to take away the agency from the cultures and the places we're talking about. Yes, 100% Great Feather. And I think that it's a little bit too easy to do that. You know what I mean? I think it's too easy to, and that's some of the problem with some of the top-down models, is that we're like, oh, the man does this. And I was like, well, hold on. But there are also people, and those people can play with things, and they can tweak things, and they can, resist in different ways. And I think it's important not to ignore the agency of the people on the ground. I just think that's important. Tic-Tac-Toe is more pop. Tic-Tac-Toe was really trying to be Salt and Peppa, but that is very much, their sound was very much like a kind of a late 80s hip hop sound. Like it was very much in but there was always rap and pop, but it wasn't pop. Like that's the thing. That's what rap sounded like, right? That's what rap sounded like in the 1980s. Like it was like rap's roots are in disco and funk and Jamaican toasting, and so people tend to use pop as a dismissal, as a pejorative, but rap did not sound like gangster rap until like 1989. All before then, it didn't sound like that at all. Rap and hip hop then was different. Yes, Balrog. Yes, 100%. They made it into Bravo, but you know what also made it into the top 40 pop charts? Nirvana. The thing is that rebellion is very popular, and I just think we have to recognize that rebellion is popular. Rage Against the Machine was on a major label. I'm just noting that, yeah. What do we have here? Universal Defense Logistics. This terminal is only to be used by UDL personnel with A237 clearance. If you're reading this without A237 clearance, please report to your supervisor for immediate termination and disciplinary action, including but not limited to fines in excess of 100,000 bits, detention in a UDL authorized incarceration center for up to 136 months, mandatory corporate policies and value seminars, revocation of company lounge and or bathroom privileges. Well, that's terrible. Pop as a pejorative is something I had to unlearn. My teenage years were very elitist, sadly. Balrog, me too. And that's the thing. When I was in my teenage years, I was the exact same way. I was like, pop sucks. Everyone who likes pop is stupid. They're all sheeple. They're not deep and meaningful like me. They don't understand true art. They're just the worst. And I did that because they were bullying me. Like, let's be fair. Like, they were bullying me. I felt really alienated. And so I responded by being a hipster jerk. And that's no good. Do you know what I mean? That's no good. Being a hipster jerk, being bullied is no good. But responding to that bullying by being an elitist hipster jerk is also not good. And so I had to unlearn that, and I did. And like, I'm just saying, right? Like, that's all I'm saying. And I learned it, right? I learned that I was being stupid. That's it. And the moment I got any popularity, I wielded it like I was a cudgel. Yeah, and that's, no, but I think that U2 was for the sheeples. And I think that, no, U2 wasn't for the sheeples because they were rock enough, right? They were rocks, they weren't pop. So they like, and that's the thing about why this is also ridiculous, that you could be on the top of the pop charts, but still not be considered pop and therefore not bad. And so like, I knew all those people were like, yeah, I don't listen to commercial music. I listen to Nirvana. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Nirvana's like top 10. Like, I don't know how you think, okay, well, whatever, right? So these sort of, once U2 was on the Batman soundtrack, then they sold out. Yes, that's right. And so I think that I just think we have to be careful because we're usually not consistent in our rhetoric, because it's about like seeming popular, not being popular. And I was just like, you know what, we got to let this go. Like, I had to let it go because it wasn't fair. And I get it. Like, I know why people do it. I know why people do it. I know it. It's the same reason. It's the same reason why some... I'm going to tell you. All right, fam, I have to go. It's time for some art. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kira. Thank you for being here. And like, I know why this happens. I know because I was there. Cell has always been odd to me. Do we not want bands to be successful? It's not about that. You know what it is? Like, it's about, Aisha says, this conversation brings up a ton of questions about music in advertising and how it influences the indie bands. Oh, also, most indie bands are on subsidiaries of major labels. Most of them are not actually indie. They just sound indie. You know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Anyway, and this is also related to D&D and video games and a number of things. And it is this. And this is where I want to have empathy for the feeling. But again, don't be a jerk, right? Nirvana wasn't pop. They were on VH1 Unplugged. No, but they weren't pop because they were real and deep. Do you know what I mean? Like, and this is the way people will just decide that because they like the band, they're not pop, right? Because, yeah. So this is what it's about. And this is like, and I understand it. I get it. I feel it. It's exactly the concept of microbrews. Yes, it is. Some of those microbrews are not that micro. Do you know what I mean? And some of them are very not micro at all, but they feel like microbrews. So all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Like then it's okay. So here's the thing. Here's the moment. Here I am, right? I'm in high school and I am, it can't be pop because I like it. I'm not them. Yes. I Depeche Mode for the sheeples. No. Depeche Mode where we were from was also not sheeple music. Depeche Mode was also alternative. The pop people liked, because Depeche Mode was also not top 40 in the United States. Top 40 in the 80s would be things like 1980s top 40. Artisanal. Let's see. Year in survey, all top 40 singles. No, I want, okay, here we go. This is going to be very great. InSync, Backstreet Boys, something that mentioned Unplugged makes me want to listen to the Unplugged concert, which, aha. Okay, so I'm going to name for you, because I feel like we sometimes don't think about these things, just a couple of the songs that were the massive top 40 hits. Michael Jackson, of course, Captain Tennille, Blondie, Billy Joel, top 40, Olivia Newton-John, Physical, Dolly Parton 9 to 5, REO Speedwagon, Keep on Loving You, Hall & Oates, Air Supply, Rick Springfield, Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, Chicago, Hard to Say I'm Sorry, Men at Work, Who Can It Be Now, more Michael Jackson, The Police, they were pretty big, more Billy Joel, Lionel Richie, Yes, Owner of a Lonely Hearts, Cyndi Lauper, Tina Turner, Wham was really big, more REO Speedwagon, Madonna, Prince, of course, Paul Young, Every Time You Go Away, Huey Lewis and the News. It's kind of like rock-ish, right? The theme to Miami Vice, Simply Red, Holding Back the Years, Pet Shop Boys. So that's Whitney Houston, Janet Jackson, Huey Lewis and the News, the Bangles, Bruce Hornsby and the Range, if you remember them. More Huey Lewis and the News. They were huge, Huey Lewis and the News. Heart had some big hits. Tiffany, Debbie Gibson, Lisa and Cult Jam, Belinda Carlisle. The Go-Go's didn't have as many hits as Belinda Carlisle did solo. More Richard Marx, more Debbie Gibson, Billy Ocean. Def Leppard had a big hit that was sort of crossed over. The Beach Boys, Chicago. Bette Midler, New Kids on the Block, Bon Jovi, Roxette, they were huge. Milli Vanilli, more Richard Marx. Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about Richard Marx in ages. Phil Collins, Billy Joel, right? Journey, yeah, right. So like that's our top 40, right? That's like our sort of like our top 40 sound at that moment, right? That's what's topping the charts. Madonna, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Phil Collins, George Michael, Lionel Richie, Hall & Oates, Stevie Wonder, Bon Jovi, and Prince are like your most number ones. Top of the charts are going to be Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, Paul McCartney, most weeks at number one. George Michael, Stevie Wonder, Madonna, Olivia Newton-John, Diana Ross, Whitney Houston, Phil Collins, Hall & Oates. Top songs, Physical, number one. Number of weeks, number one. Physical, Betty Davis Eyes, Endless Love, Every Breath You Take, I Love Rock and Roll, Ebony and Ivory, Billie Jean, Call Me, Lady by Kenny Rogers, Centerfold by the J. Giles Band, Eye of the Tiger, Flashdance, Say, Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson, Like a Virgin, When Doves Cry, and Jump, right? So those are like our big, massive things. Every Rose Is a Thorn, yeah. Human nature, speaking of seeking uniqueness, acceptance, and novelty causes people to classify things around them inconsistently and erroneously. Oh yes, Unstable Deus, because the classification is not about what the thing is, but about who they are, right? I saw Journey live with Steve O'Terry and it was amazing. Ooh, that sounds good. The island of Gisket has a super interesting history, by the way. It's the place where the British royals can trace their oldest roots to, because the church was built by the family of the Gangrel, the ancestor of William. Oh, that's so interesting. That was so mainstream, and half of my class had the hots for them, so that my bully teacher said that they would be looking like Neos just to piss his fan club off. But then I was the only one getting that he was pulling an ass move. Did the dude from Roxette, did he die? Oh, I don't know. Oh, wow, that's so terrible. Yes. So, and then I'm going to tell you, this is what I'm going to tell you. So, when I was in high school, right, I was bullied a lot. And I was bullied by people who listened to all that mainstream music. And part of the bullying was bullying me for the kind of music I liked, right? They bullied me because I liked Dungeons and Dragons. They bullied me because I read comic books. They bullied me because I listened to sort of alternative music, No, I'm almost, like, we got like 5 minutes. Right, so they bullied me for all of those reasons, right? So they bullied me because I listened to weirdo music and I played weirdo games and I did weirdo things, right? And that was part of the ways in which they bullied me. And I'm listening to my weirdo things, and I listened to it also because I didn't feel like them. So I joined the Army in 1990. I come back, I realize all of a sudden I'm home on leave, and all of a sudden, everyone who bullied me, partially for liking alternative music, is now listening to Nirvana. Like, all of my bullies are now listening to alternative music. The stuff they bullied me for, they said I was a weirdo for, and they made my life miserable for, now they're listening to, and now they get to be cool. And it feels like they're stealing my identity, right? Like that's the thing, right? It feels like they're taking the one thing that you had that was your own, that you held on to and you got punished for. They made your life miserable because you had this thing on your own, and this thing that you had becomes part of your identity and part of your opposition to them, and then they take it, right? They take this thing, and it feels like they're robbing you of your identity, and it feels unfair. And so when people get mad when their stuff gets mainstream, sell out, it's often because they feel like they've lost something important. And now those people who used to bully them are now in the same concerts. Like, you used to be able to go to that concert or that alternative club or whatever, and you wouldn't have to worry about those bullies because they weren't there, and now they are. And this is why I think a lot of people feel angry that Marvel films are popular, or angry that their band became popular, or angry that D&D is popular. It's not that popular, by the way. It's not like, that's not a good way to feel. That's not a great reaction, because that's not the band's fault or D&D's fault. And actually, it's probably a good thing that these people who were once your bullies are now growing and becoming maybe more open. But it's understandable why people feel that way. It's just a thing that really we should work through. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like a thing. That's a thing to work through. That's all. I think we can actually make a sound thing. I think we could make a sound thing. I think we can. I think we can do it. I'm gonna have to find out how to do it, but I think we can. I think the thing is that we can actually make a command to do it. I think we could. That happens with some old grognards and RPGs, and how RPGs are more mainstream now too. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm not sure what Command Tuesday uses either. She might be using BTTV. I'm gonna look into it. Then we can get a bell. And then you begin to like Japanese and Korean music and Bible music, and then, right, so yeah. I'm gonna get myself to a save point. I'm gonna read this and then we're gonna go. So like, it's not a good reaction. Like, it's not a good way to respond to things, because it's not a bad thing when people start to like your stuff. But I understand why people felt that, because I felt that way, you know, when I was 19, and all of a sudden everybody is listening to alternative music who hated it the year before. I get it, but it's not a healthy reaction. It's not healthy. That's a really good point about how the definition of mainstream versus popular is all about self-identification in the end. Yeah, totally. That's what it is. And that doesn't mean that it means not that it's meaningless. Actually, in some ways, it means that it means even more, right? Because it is really important to people. It means so much to them. And that's why, in some ways, it's even more important, so we have to just be thoughtful about it. Project Lorem Ipsum shall result in a potent, mostly non-lethal crowd control gas for use against rioting, agitated, or excessively numerous crowds. Rich sulfur pockets make Monarch a prime site for testing and experimentation. Early results show promise, but further research is necessary. UDL disavows all knowledge and responsibility of Lorem Ipsum. All data in this report is considered proprietary knowledge of UDL. Let's transfer those files. Let's do that. Finishing this save point. I was into grunge music before it was cool. I listened to my mom before it was cool. Me too. I'm gonna get killed now for making that joke. No, it's fine. Not at all. Not at all. And I think I'm gonna look into it. I'm gonna talk to Tuesday about it. I'm gonna ask her to see if there's a way to do it. To sort of write. Yes. There's no reason to be healthy. I wanted to do Stephen King with them 25 like, and it's just, you know, it's just rough. Like, it's really difficult because these are there is a way to have a command that would pop up a sound, like with a bell. Like there's a way to do it, and I know that Random Tuesday knows, and I'm going to ask her because she'll know how to do it. I just think it probably happens through. Yeah, BTTV maybe. I don't. Yeah, I'm gonna ask her. Mr. Valdez, just reporting in to let you know that the lab's all set up. We found a good sulfur pocket to drill into, so the data's coming in, but the place smells awful. The only local we've had to make contact with is the sublight boss in Fallbrook. She doesn't ask questions, but I'm pretty sure she's gouging us. And we're all getting sick of expired cysty blitz. Sanders, it's supposed to smell awful, that's the point. I don't care what sublight is charging as long as it keeps your presence there quiet. If word gets out, we're going to spend the rest of our lives in corporate re-education seminars. I don't want to hear from you again until you have a working formula. Once we've got that, you and the rest of the lab rats can come to Byzantium and live on cacao ribs for all I care. Cacao ribs. Yeah, I think it's another bot. And come up with a better name for the project. Something flashy and catchy, but that the rest of management will take seriously. Maybe like Waterloo or Danger Burn. I'm sick of my boss asking me why I'm forgetting to fill out parts of my reports. It's fair. And then alternate project titles. Restricted by user, J. Powell. Login credentials required. Oh no, I can hack that. If Valdez wants a better title, let's see how she likes these. She's going to be furious if she ever finds this list, and I'm not covering for you. Make sure these are good and hidden, NS. Thunderdog, Eggs Mayhem, Skunk Parade. Fuck you, Valdez. I want my raise. Yep, I like it. I would like to point out for the record, we have been extraordinarily productive. And I just want you to know it. So we're in a save point. We just checked the bathroom, and this entire floor is now checked, and we can save. We're gonna stand. Wait, we didn't pick up these items. Also, I'm over encumbered, so just surprise. I know you're not surprised. Okay, so now we're going to place ourselves right in front of the stairwell so that when we start, we know that all we need to do is go down the stairwell. That's it. That's it. Always have Ambar Garwin. All I do. Okay, yeah, it looks like there's more to look at down here. So I'm gonna just stand up here and save. That's what I'm gonna do. Save right up here. And then at some point in time, maybe we'll find. I'll make a second save. We'll just find like a vending machine, and then I can sell things, and that'll be fine, right? Yes. Okay. This is accept that main menu. Yes. Okay. And then I can turn down our sound a little bit, and then we're gonna do our outro. So what do we got here? Yeah, I need to figure out how to make a bell on stream. That's what I'm gonna do. Yes, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna ask Random Tuesday. She can tell me. I'm genuinely so happy to have been here today. By the way, I learned so much in such a short time, and music is being so dear to my heart. I'm happy to say. Oh, look. If you want to distract me from gaming, all you need to do is start bringing up music, and then we can talk about why it's weird that Slumdog Millionaire won the Best Picture. It's like, oh, it's the first foreign film that won the Oscar for Best Picture. I was like, it's not really a foreign film, though. It's not an Indian film. It's directed by Danny Boyle. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying that, like, we can really talk about some really cool things, and I'm so excited about it. Also, Balrog, the name game. Come on, everybody. I said, now let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. The first letter of the name. I treat it like it wasn't there. And then a B or an F. Or an M will appear. And then I say bow out a B, then I say the name, then banana, fanner, and foe. Then I say the name again with an F, very plain, then a fee, fi, and a mo. And then I say the name again with an M this time, and there isn't any name that I can't rhyme. But if the first two letters are ever the same, I drop them both, then say the name like Bob. Bob drop the B's, Bo, or Fred. Fred drop the F's, for Red, or Mary. Mary drop the M's, Mo, airy. That's the only rule that is contrary. Balrog, Balrog, Bo-Alrog, banana, fana, fo, falrog, fee, fi, mo, malrog. Balrog. Thank you for that sub. That's amazing. Thank you. Yay. To be honest, I really regret I miss as much of these as I do because the chat and trooper combos are amazing. You know what? However much you can is good. That is it. So Jared's posted the socials. I have a Discord, and you can join us in the Discord. We chat there all the time. And also you can follow or subscribe if you like. I'm on YouTube at Trooper SJP, and that has an archive of all of these shows, including all the RPGs. You can find me on Twitter at Academic Foxhole. I also have a Patreon at Academic Foxhole, which is which goes towards all the RPG streams that I do to pay my cast and the musicians and the artists and all of that. And that's the cool thing. And Danny Boyle is an Indian? No. Yes. So let me tell you where you can find me. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. on this channel, you can find me doing Cthulhu Confidential, an RPG with one GM, one player. The player is Jackie Dash, who's amazing. And it is hard-boiled 1930s Cthulhu noir. And our investigative reporter, Vivian Sinclair, went undercover working at a mob-owned clip joint, which is a bar that basically cheats the customers by getting women to encourage the dudes there to buy more alcohol than they should. And the alcohol is usually watered down and is like charged a lot of money, right? So, but in the case of this, there's been a murder. That was like their big cliffhanger last night. There was a murder that seems a little weird. And so tomorrow there's gonna be investigations, which might take her to some kind of Cthulhuoid sort of business. And that's not Cheating Custer, that's a feature. Murder Most Foul. So, and then next week, you can find me on Thursday here at 6 p.m. for more Wander Song. We did a lot. Friday at 1 p.m., you can find me at Laugh Love Lindy's channel for Aether's Walkway, a sci-fi game. And then back here, and also, ooh, I'm sorry, I have to tell you, next Friday night at 7 p.m. is the season opener of City of Light and Shadow, the French Resistance campaign. Next Friday at 7 p.m. on my channel, French Resistance game, it's back, and it's better than ever. Whoa! Sorry, I just wanted to share that. And then Saturday, more Outer Worlds. So that's all of the business. I have with a new cast member, there's a lot. I'm so excited. Isn't that also the entire post of most bars? How do I already know it's better than ever? Well, let me put it this way, PH. It'll be better than ever for me because I have got really evil plans. Oh, PH, I've got such evil plans. I'm so excited. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. I mean, I do want to talk about it, but I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it right now. I can't talk about it. But what I'm trying to say is I've got evil plans and I'm so excited. It's going to be so good. That's it. And YouTube has season 1, but if you haven't watched season 1, you can jump in on season 2 because we have a new player and we'll get stuff. Balrog says, oh, I don't mean to sound creepy, but I just saw Mansions of Madness in the background and I love the, oh yeah, it's great, right? I love that game too. All right, y'all are great. I'm going to get food and I'm going to do work emails and prep and all of that. So thank you for being here. You all have been wonderful and I will catch, oh, no, wait, no, we're not going yet. Wait a minute. Wait, we're doing a raid. We're doing a raid. We're going to raid Encounter Roleplay. And I want to raid Encounter Roleplay. What is their Encounter Roleplay? Yeah, we're going to raid Encounter Roleplay is what we're going to do because they're doing a whole thing right now. And I hope your work at progress is better than mine. Hey, I got it. I'm going to be really disciplined today, I hope. I mean, I don't know, but I hope. Here's our raid command. This is not a raid. It is a art history joke. So let's raid them. Thank you, everybody. I will catch you on the flip side. You all are the best. And we're going to do our raid. We're going to do the raid. It's going to be so good. I'm a tiny bit biased as an admin there, but I hope you'll stick around for the cherry game starting half hour. Oh, I'm excited for it. I'm excited, and what I'm gonna do is eat food while watching, and then I'm gonna do my email while watching. So I'm gonna stick around. So everybody, we're gonna raid them. Take care, and let's give some love to Encounter Roleplay because they're doing a charity drive. All right, everybody, catch you on the flip side.